Deep underground, molten terror spills through the cave, and Haruka charges in anyway, because the system already stamped him as Haruka Namiki, S-rank explorer, while the monsters rush him with all the grace of a disaster nobody invited. Yet one brutal slash tears straight through their momentum, turning arrogance into chunks, and when the swarm keeps pressing, he barks for backup like the boss he is. The blue-haired caster answers instantly, wrapping the battlefield in ridiculous confidence. Then their combined power detonates in waves of blue and red violence, leaving Haruka casually thanking the support like this was barely a warm-up, but the scan warns of advanced monsters closing from above and the rear, so he drops low, sword ready, making panic look embarrassingly late. The blue-haired caster spots Haruka under pressure, and backs him instantly, because even a roaring monster rush gets the polite answer, "Please do," while Haruka's blade carves through the lead beast, ruining its big entrance, and somewhere behind that chaos, a girl admits she admired her, enough to become an explorer in this world of dungeon towns, where adults are already everywhere, making danger look like a day job, because explorers keep diving into trap-filled dungeons stuffed with monsters, then subjugating those beasts while acting like survival is normal, collecting loot, trading finds, and pretending that's not insane, and mapping the dungeon, because apparently paperwork follows the apocalypse. They grind endlessly, turning dungeon survival into a full-time industry, because rank is the real paycheck, and every climb smells like ambition, not some fairy tale about glory, just profit wrapped in monster guts. Down on dungeon floor 1, a rookie steps in, pretending this is normal, while the rules spell out the dream clearly. Fame, wealth, and Haruka Namiki, except power comes first, and monster kills are the fastest shortcut upward, so the system bluntly stamps him as an explorer, rank D, nothing glamorous, yet his stats keep creeping up. And yes, magic is joining the bullying, meaning steady achievements should push him higher, assuming reality cooperates. But Haruka just sighs, because regret won't save anyone now. Haruka drops into mission mode, already treating disaster like routine, while the system flaunts some flashy unique skill and raw measurement nonsense. Then it starts scanning the floor, pretending this mess is totally manageable, and even flags brittle ground, as if the dungeon itself is feeling fragile, so he smugly assumes trap jobs and repairs are beneath high-ranking explorers, but the gossip behind him says he keeps doing simple work for others. Across dungeon town slums, one exhausted explorer remembers why he entered, after a kid gets shoved aside and quietly catches a helping hand. Then comes the suspicious question of why anyone would bother here, and the answer lands coldly: helping someone like me won't benefit you. That smug denial hits first, because Haruka refuses the obvious narrative. Then the memory of helping strugglers makes his whole philosophy annoyingly simple. Tomorrow's view will brighten, he insists, like kindness somehow beats darkness, and that hopeful speech lands right in a clueless eye staring back, which is when Shinji starts sizing up the infamous level 100 guy, except the floor noise interrupts his grand act, as if the dungeon itself disagrees, while his entourage fawns over him, ready to test that ridiculous confidence. Then Haruka's status appears, and the room finally remembers who the monster is. Shinji even offers insight scanning, because subtlety died the moment he entered, and the result? Haruka Namiki, level 100, rank D, obviously hiding everything. Shinji's smug little lecture lands, and Haruka gets labeled a fake monster, but the silent stare says enough. Because that ego is already wobbling, then the challenge comes out, with Shinji inviting him into the extermination squad, and that purple-eyed show-off finally faces the truth. Courtesy of Haruka's pressure, Gravity Bind slams the swarm down, while the blue-haired caster backs the kill, leaving the red-clad onlooker buried in rubble, looking absolutely cooked, which only makes Shinji snarl harder. Insulting a childhood friend like that helps, until Haruka shuts down the familiarity act, refusing his pathetic little nickname game, and now he's furious, glaring like the whole dungeon offended his pride. But Shinji still insists level 100 is just a mask, nothing more. Normally, hitting level 100 should mean flashy evolution, not disappointment, but for him the grind caps out early, locking stats and pride in place. Meanwhile, the mysterious girl becomes the reason he ever picked up a blade. And even then, power still feels unfairly out of reach, so naturally he spirals. Shinji laughs like a genius, only to look stupid as his cruelty lands flat, because Haruka slams back harder, exposing how fake that smug confidence really was. Then the purple-eyed fool keeps poking at the childhood connection, acting clever, until Haruka's glare turns icy, shutting down the nickname game completely. Shinji still swears level 100 is just a mask, and then, the answer comes in one brutal demand for it back, while panic finally cracks. The taunting begins with a tiny talisman, still dangling like a cruel joke, and Shinji smugly prods Haruka for keeping that pathetic little gift around. Then he sneers that it was only ever protection for a weakling, before doubling down, acting amazed Haruka still had not tossed it away, because apparently nothing says genius like bullying someone with their own keepsake. But Haruka snaps the charm loose, and Shinji's confidence instantly starts rotting, while the battlefield around them trembles under pressure and everyone feels the mood curdle. Then comes the real insult, with Haruka called weak and pathetic to his face, and Shinji keeps pushing, hinting it might be time to just die already, until Haruka's fury finally spikes, and the fool realizes he woke the wrong monster. The smug showdown cracks open fast, and Haruka's power stuns Shinji, who starts babbling about dungeon deaths like that, makes him sound wise. Then the guild rules get twisted into a disgusting little loophole. As Shinji boasts, Haruka's body will vanish, because of course he would, and the childhood keepsake comes up, turning his master plan into cruelty, while he smugly asks how the girl will react when this is handed over. Except Haruka's answer is pure menace, promising to protect her gently, and Shinji's pathetic threat lands first, only to get swallowed by rage, because Haruka silences him with gravity bind, all cold authority. Then the floor becomes a coffin as the arrogant fool gets crushed. Haruka turns that smug challenge into purple menace, laughing off the ultimate magic. Then the threat sharpens as he vows the crushed would feel it. No mercy. Gravity bind snaps into place, and Shinji's arrogance gets flattened instantly. The floor caves under the pressure, like his whole ego finally meeting reality. Nearby, explorers panic as the ground starts collapsing, and Shinji's face loses all color, because that overconfident genius just got planted in the dirt, spectacularly and loudly. Haruka keeps the focus on Himawari, promising gentle protection, while still grinning like trouble, as the red-haired girl appears in glowing light, untouched by the chaos. Shinji's scream comes too late, bloodied and desperate, realizing the damage is already done, and Haruka casually points him out the door of disaster, acting like this was nothing. Haruka lies mangled in blood, yet still snarls through the pain, while the gravity bind detonates and Shinji's smugness gets buried underground. Literally, as Haruka's thoughts turn frantic, chasing strength before Himawari becomes the next casualty, but the system coldly calls his situation hopeless, then starts measuring his death, dissecting his body, mocking his limits, and calling the whole mess pathetic, until Haruka's supposed death triggers a ridiculous level up, because the universe apparently loves humiliating villains, and somewhere in the dark, his widened eye says this nightmare just got personal, so Shinji finally starts screaming. All dignity gone, what a shocking collapse. With Haruka crumpled on the floor beside his weapon, stranded in rubble and silence, then he wakes confused, wondering where this cursed place even is. Haruka drops into a ruined chamber, wondering if he fell from above, only to realize he should have died, which is adorable denial. Then memory rushes back, monsters, the fall, and Shinji's smug face. The whole situation replays like a bad joke, with Shinji now panicking, because Haruka has endured mockery before. But this level of chaos is new, and the tiny charm on the floor becomes his reminder that time is running out, so his expression hardens, as if he finally remembers why he came here. Himawari is with Shinji, which means hesitation would be pure stupidity, but even now he admits the ugly truth. He cannot beat him. Yet, and that miserable hallway suddenly feels like the start of something worse. Haruka's face says one thing. This situation is already disgusting, yet he refuses to drown in pessimism, hunting an exit instead. Then reality snaps back, and he starts rechecking everything suspicious, because the status window denies his pain, scars, and common sense, and that tiny level readout finally hits him like a joke, level 101, while he's been stranded at 100 forever. So now his disbelief hardens into focus, because something's off. Monsters surge in from below, but he keeps his nerve. His blade and that strange purple barrage crash together beautifully, and the charging beast gets cut down before it can brag. His grip tightens on the hilt, and the whole battlefield leans forward, while Haruka's eye locks in as monsters get sliced apart below. The swarm keeps charging, but that red-coated kid refuses to fold, because one glance tells him this target is absurdly dangerous, not ordinary. Even the beast's claw only proves Hez facing something far beyond fodder, and suddenly his body feels lighter, like the sword belongs there. Yet a strange pain nags him, making him question whether anything broke. Then the dungeon erupts with a howl, and Haruka stares upward in disbelief, as the floor is confirmed, and the kobolds become the next bad decision. With floor 3 looming, he braces for dire wolves and worse. Haruka's still standing after that insane blast, and everyone's stunned. because the beast's claw confirms this isn't some easy prey at all. Even Haruka realizes Orthros is the real nightmare, not fodder, while the dungeon's chaos keeps laughing at his survival, obviously. Then the fall finally hits his nerves, and he spots childhood friend. The purple-haired snob starts panicking too, surrounded by allies and regret, because Haruka's grudge just sharpened, and useless threats got buried, so he decides survival is non-negotiable, with that monster closing in. Orthros snarls back like a walking disaster, burning with ugly intent, and Haruka answers with skill, body enhancement, and pure, stubborn hunger. The system lights up his body, and Haruka bets survival just got real. Then he snaps forward, testing that boosted frame against the battlefield. As the fire blast crashes in, he endures it with obscene composure, and even the blue-haired ally freezes, sensing this man is absurdly intact. Back in town, the silent onlookers stare, while one girl finally recognizes him. The street fills with ordinary explorers, but nobody here looks remotely ordinary anymore. Her shocked face says it all, because Haruka's return just detonated old memories around her. The crowd keeps drifting, clueless that a reunion is rewriting the mood. Then she calls his name upward, and the whole street suddenly feels smaller, because the enhancement holds, the damage fades, and Haruka keeps advancing anyway. Haruka tanks the firestorm, and even Pain looks embarrassed by him. The appraisal spikes to absurdity, making his doubled stats sound almost insulting. Skill alone holds the line here, while the blaze keeps screaming in frustration. Then the system starts its smug countdown, like victory is already scheduled. Haruka realizes level growth was never luck, just brutal effort and nerve. 10 seconds later, he's still standing, because his footwork refuses to panic. He knows stronger prey forced the evolution, not some fairy tale talent. And that monstrous eye confirms it. Monsters are readable if you stare long enough. Their habits become predictions. Their chaos becomes a map. Their doom becomes obvious. 30 seconds in, the beasts flinch, because brute force was never his game. The monster swarm barrels in, and Haruka meets it head-on, unblinking, because that smug little got it means the first read already landed. Then steel flashes as his blade carves straight through the beast's opening, and the system's countdown dies at 36 seconds, hilariously too late. Haruka even grins, wondering if he actually did it, like that's modest. But the real joke is the monster being labeled stubborn after getting folded, since his doubled stats and body enhancement were the only reason this worked. Otherwise, that flaming beast would have cooked him alive. No questions asked. Now the creature is split wide open, while Haruka stands there, annoyingly intact, and the last reaction is pure panic, because the red blur just keeps winning. Haruka's grip stays steady, because panic would be embarrassing here, and the beast's skull explodes in red as his blade lands cleanly, while Haruka smirks through the blood, still somehow standing after that absurd strike. Then the system smugly calls it confirmed, as the monster finally drops, because letting his guard down would have meant death, and he knows it. So when the next skill appears, Haruka studies it like a trap, until Insight drops the punchline, revealing true names with ridiculous authority, and the dead-looking beast behind him only makes the upgrade feel nastier. So Haruka decides to try it, with the confidence of a man surviving on spite. Then Insight triggers again, and the whole setup starts feeling ominously personal. If it's an Orthros at this level, Haruka's humor is basically dead already, and Shinji's old warning to the blue-haired caster lands like a funeral bell, because Haruka still reaches for the readout anyway, and that's where courage starts hurting. The pain hits again, the wrist locks up, and suddenly this job feels personal. Then the system spits out Orthros as the true name, juvenile and nearby. Wow. Haruka's eyes widen, because that tiny label just turned into a massive problem, since a juvenile means the real beast is close, probably on the 5th floor, so he launches himself downstream, chasing the safest route like survival royalty, while panic finally cracks Shinji's confidence, and his admiration turns into embarrassment, because Haruka just walked into a deeper cave, and the fun part hasn't started. A blood-red stare pierces the dark. Like the dungeon itself just got personal, Haruka catches the murderous pressure, and that smug confidence starts sweating fast, because the chase turns ugly, with unseen pursuers forcing him into a bad angle. Then the floor springs its little joke, and his footing dies in a heartbeat. The system hijacks the moment, predicting arrows while he grabs his blade anyway. One look at his eye says it all, because the numbers are getting ridiculous. So he draws, moving with brutal precision, while the controls tighten like a noose. The warning flashes next, and suddenly the easy target is a high-level beast. Skill measurement gets promoted into divine insight, and Haruka is absolutely not amused. Then the blue monster shows up, and even his brain goes, What was that just now? Haruka whips around, because that tiny warning just screamed bad news. Ahead, the monster wave barrels in, all teeth, claws, and bad manners. Then the blue beast hurls fire-like pressure, turning survival into a joke. The huge beast follows through, and the tunnel practically begs for mercy. Haruka nearly chokes on panic, staring up at the impossible nightmare. Water crashes into the attack, buying him one very expensive second. The system calls the dodge clean, then smugly brands this worst-case reality. So Haruka locks onto insight, and the numbers suddenly get ridiculous. That blue beast is Orthros, adult form, with the mother nearby. Great. The system awards points too, because apparently chaos is homework. The blue beast crashes in, and Haruka barely steals one breathing second. The system smugly calls the dodge clean, tossing out evaluation points. Then it keeps rewarding every desperate move, like survival is homework. Haruka panics at the readout, realizing this pace gets him killed. Even the bonus points mock him, as the system keeps explaining nothing. Against that monster, his current stats suddenly feel embarrassingly tiny, so he freezes, wondering what to do before the next bite lands. 3 minutes later, the evaluation ends, and the points double. Rank A pops up next, while Haruka rockets upward to level 50. Someone nearby freaks out over the level up, because reality just cheated. Haruka stares at the glitching reward screen, still not past Orthros, while his brain screams to ignore it and survive this nightmare first, because that blue-furred monster is pure oppression, and the swarm backs it, leaving him sweating under the pressure, while panic turns into a frozen grin. Then a red-eyed horned woman steps in, smugly calling the beast their mistake, and Haruka's confusion spikes when that voice starts teasing him from nowhere, as the horned, blue-haired caster keeps laughing, glowing like she owns his life, making him question whether he's hearing ghosts or some terrifying woman, while she casually tells him to sleep and finish the job himself, and that finally snaps him awake, shouting for her to wait, just wait. Haruka's mind catches on something impossible, while panic keeps clawing at him, because that blue-furred monster still radiates pure oppression, and the swarm follows obediently. Then he gets a cold reminder that hesitation is useless. So he locks in, as the system abruptly wakes up, recalculating his worth with humiliating precision. His confidence shatters when the beast's pressure spikes, and mockery turns into fear, while the strange woman's voice keeps haunting him, smugly acting like this is routine, and the battlefield answers with a brutal clash, yet he's still getting roasted alive, because even body enhancement can't save him from that absurd, fire-like punishment. Then his blade gets casually dismissed as junk, which is honestly embarrassing, so he reaches for something bigger, and the system finally starts taking him seriously. Haruka slams water pressure into the battlefield, because subtlety is dead here. The hydro cannon blooms wider, and the monster gets a front-row punishment lesson. That torrent drills straight through the circle, turning the beast's smug glow into panic. Even Haruka flinches at the system's cold approval, which is honestly humiliating. Then the evaluation spikes, and his was this. Always, this strong moment gets exposed. Meanwhile, the dragon-shaped surge keeps surfacing, like the spell is showing off now. The beast can only brace, because even it knows this is no ordinary splash damage. Haruka keeps pressing forward, pretending fear isn't knocking at his ribs. The monster answers with raw ferocity, but the water beam just keeps winning, so the battlefield splits open, and Haruka's absurd power finally starts looking real. The beast's smug charge gets ripped open by a brutal torrent, and suddenly, the system starts tossing out critical hit praise like Haruka meant to do that, while he stands over the wreckage, clearly annoyed the monster is still moving, because apparently even being half dead isn't enough to earn peace here, and that ugly resilience forces a rare, grudging reaction from the enemy, so Haruka answers with the real trick, gripping steel as lightning bites down, then unleashing a sky-splitting strike that turns confidence into a bad joke, as the system showers him with rank A results, levels, and absurd rewards, leaving the beast pinned under blood and claws, finally realizing the nightmare, while Haruka recalls how measurement became divine insight, and everything changed. The system starts preaching efficiency, while Haruka bleeds through the lesson, and the reward math is ridiculous. Because level 10 cost him a fortune, yet that misery only sharpens his grin, since divine insight changed everything, so now he swears he can crush Shinji, and keep climbing anyway, while the monster sprawls below, still moving, still making this a joke, and Haruka answers with a brutal strike, as the beast finally starts buckling, but he is already thinking further, because half measures are for amateurs, he needs stronger monsters, and a way out, not applause from nobodies. Meanwhile, Yukimura keeps smiling like denial is a personality trait, until Haruka's hand plants down, and that confidence gets quietly buried. Haruka swallows the pain and decides he needs more power. Behind him, the girl finally lands his name. Himawari-san. Of course. Then he clutches the charm. Like sentimental junk still matters here. Because now he wants divine insight decoded and a way out alive. He doubles down on the ridiculous plan to crush Shinji too. While the smug blue-haired observer watches, amused by the chaos, water crashes down as the monster gets bullied for once. And even that beast acts shocked a human would dare fight back. Haruka snaps around, honestly realizing this power is no joke. Then the beast grins, fully awake now, thanks to him. The guild's announcement cuts through morning quiet, and the dungeon briefing starts. Haruka Namiki is already stamped dead, which is hilariously premature. A familiar woman freezes, then the name hits her like a slap. Then Yukimura Shinji gets mentioned, along with that ugly aftermath. Haruka's body was shredded, leaving only a pouch for proof. The woman spirals into regret, deciding she should have stopped him. Instead, she reaches for the intercom, because rumors need feeding. Shinji answers with that smug little grin, acting like this is casual. He leans in with fake familiarity, pretending distance never happened. Her glare sharpens, because whatever he wants now, he picked the wrong moment. At the doorway, the purple-haired nuisance arrives like regret in human form and hands over Haruka Namika's pouch, turning that familiar name into a slap, while the woman panics, demanding the door be opened before he vanishes again, because the moment has gone. The old disaster story starts whispering back. She grabs the intercom, already regretting the rumor she's about to feed, and Shinji answers with that smug little glow, acting like absence was a joke. Then he strolls in, all charm and fake nostalgia, like he owns forgiveness, which only makes her glare harder, because his timing is offensive enough. As the name lands, she sees Haruka in the package and nearly breaks, and now the reunion hangs there, sharp, ugly, and impossible to ignore. Shinji keeps that smug glow, teasing Tachibana like concern is a performance, not charity, while she folds under the pressure. Clearly one rumor away from snapping in public, then the name Yukimura lands, and the so-called weak package suddenly shakes her world, because that face in front of her is Haruka, and denial just got body slammed. His hand brushes her face, absurdly gentle for a guy crashing her sanity. Oops. And somehow he boasts that surviving the 12th floor made her stronger than average, but even his charm gets messy when he admits it took real effort this time, since she's still reeling from Haruka's supposed death, and he weaponizes that shock. Then the reunion hits full volume, her eyes locking on him like fate finally lost patience, and Shinji just sighs, knowing that charming her was never going to be easy. Yukimura leans into the moment, smugly calling her broken, easy prey, but she's on the floor, blinking through disbelief, and demanding why now, because after all these years, seeing Haruka again feels impossible, cruel, and real. While his calm little remark about her childhood friend's status lands like a knife, the flashback hits hard, exposing that weak, naive boy he used to be, and the joke flips, since happiness only meant leaving her behind. Apparently, now the reunion turns electric. The girl recognizing Haruka across the hall, and he admits he simply couldn't tolerate that betrayal. Not anymore, so Yukimura decides Haruka must suffer longer, until he's completely shattered, though the punchline is brutal, because Haruka's already gone, and he's laughing. Even now, the girl spits venom, calling the whole thing pathetic and insane, while the horned caster freezes, stunned that Haruka is still standing there. Then that same girl reaches out, demanding proof this nightmare is real, and Haruka answers with a cruel grin, basically daring everyone to cope. Gravity slams down next, pinning the smug bastard under his own spell, yet he whines about manners while pretending this humiliation is somehow normal, because he starts worshipping that A-rank woman like a terminally online fan, then twists the knife by claiming Haruka should stay broken forever, only for the girl to choke on panic, demanding why he even cares, and he laughs, bored already, before dropping a super-gravity table. Deep underground, Haruka faces the water dragon, and the whole tunnel reeks of disaster. Then his appraising gaze snaps on, because the so-called monster is already being dissected, while a failing system screen screams error, proving reality just got embarrassed, and that strange revelation hits hard, as the target keeps staring back, confused by the failure, because this blue-haired menace starts bragging about humans sniffing out secrets. What a classy villain. But Haruka has already locked in, noting last time needed precautions, not panic. Then he coolly connects the dots, realizing this thing had already fought another explorer, and now the dragon gets reduced to a water-speaking curiosity, still lacking answers, which is adorable, because the beast tries acting dignified while Haruka says nothing at all, and that silence hits harder than any speech, leaving the monster looking painfully small. The blue beast looms like a disaster, and the first answer is pure panic. But Haruka stays flat, treating that arrogance like cheap noise, not menace. The monster snaps back, offended, while Haruka keeps calling out the bluff. Then the beast drops the usual villain routine, promising to kill him, human. The smug blue-haired girl chimes in, warning him not to get cocky now. Haruka answers with electricity and footwork, triggering a body enhancement surge. Still, the monster hovers over land, convinced terrain makes it untouchable. Haruka stares it down, thinking he still has one real shot left. That's when the system screen flashes divine insight, and the plan clicks. No time to waste here, so Haruka slashes in before the beast can recover. Haruka's thinking past panic now, forcing raw strength and a comeback for Himawari, while the blue-haired caster locks the flames into place, helping his setup look almost cruel, and the blue-skinned monster finally squares up, acting offended as if smugness is a strategy, so Haruka calmly maps the battlefield, turning fire into blind spots with ridiculous precision. Then the follow-up comes aimed at the vitals, because subtlety died the moment he got serious, and his fiery phoenix technique detonates upward, basically announcing that restraint has left the chat, yet the beast only bares its teeth, hissing like it still owns the arena, until the larger flame dance crashes down, shredding that confidence into expensive-looking ash, leaving Haruka inside a glowing magic circle, absolutely ready to finish the job, while the mysterious blue-haired girl watches and smirks, enjoying the chaos a little too much. This monster claims the arena, but Haruka stays terrifyingly unbothered, and the blade answer comes clean, turning raw fire into a hostage. Then Haruka twists the battlefield, exposing the beast's vital mistake, while its magic gets hijacked, nullified, and mocked in one humiliating blow, as the blue-haired ally realizes that control is apparently a joke now, and the smug caster girl quietly enjoys the chaos from the shadows, because this so-called annihilation class beast suddenly looks a lot less confident, when Haruka starts wondering if it can even read his next move, until the rank ladder drops the real insult, mythical class sitting above it, and suddenly Haruka is being oddly helpful, which is never a good sign. The blue-haired caster smirks first, already enjoying this ugly little showdown. Then the beast boasts about level 4000, which is adorable nonsense. Haruka's stare ruins the mood, while the numbers somehow sound even worse. His status pops up, and surprise, he is absurdly strong already. Even then, the system tags him as provisional, because bureaucracy loves drama. The advanced Orthros lies wrecked, while Haruka studies its ugly mistake. That monster suddenly feels smaller, realizing this is a different league. So Haruka tells everyone to watch and think, like a terrifying tutor. The creature finally flinches, because he has already seen through it. After past losses, Haruka has prepared thoroughly for Orochi. A high-tier dragon-type monster has terrorized Dungeon City for years, its firepower flattening A-rank explorers like they were cheap snacks. And, so the guild assembled Orochi, a polished little squad of talent, only for the battle to expose weakness, then prove the beast still lived. Haruka studies that creature and immediately pegs it as Orochi, because apparently being weak is now enough to communicate with monsters, which is hilarious, since he is already plotting escape and counterplay. Instead of panicking, he turns the whole exchange into a diagnosis, admitting curiosity drove him to test how a feeble human used power, and that, of course, is only the other reason he is still standing. That black system blob keeps poking the mystery, and the air turns electric. Haruka's eye widens, because even he can smell trouble now. Then it presses for details, dragging the conversation into cursed territory, and Haruka, annoyed but sharp, realizes the power feels way too familiar. The beast finally asks where that thing came from, desperate to sound informed. Haruka drops the answer, a human settlement, where one tail got stolen. So now the monster is spiraling, wondering why Shed carry extras like accessories. Haruka narrows it down further, pointing at Orochi's true body with cold certainty. The creature goes smug again, bragging that level 4000 was the only answer. Haruka grips his sword harder, because apparently losing is still not an option. That familiar power suddenly twists the whole battlefield, and now, the system starts measuring Haruka like it's auditing a disaster, because if he can use this skill, maybe escape is possible. So the calculations keep climbing while his confidence turns feral. Then the target screams as Haruka's blade tears straight through, and the wounded monster flails when its right arm gets deleted, meaning the optimal answer was simple, brutal, and ridiculously overkill. As the beast roars and the water pressure turns into a wave, the system cashes in the damage, spitting out absurd level gains, and suddenly even Haruka is staring at 2,200 like reality broke. And then the system drops a filthy new skill, Ultra Physical Enhancement. While Haruka's optimal gamble leaves Orochi's main body missing an arm, the beast mutters human-like he's not the one bleeding into the spell circle, and suddenly its rage fills the room. Because sneaking failed spectacularly, Haruka shrugs off the drama, refusing to waste another heartbeat there. So Yukimura Shinji's panic finally lands. As the name that matters rises, Himawara's strength gets praised, and Shinji's chances look embarrassingly tiny. Still, Haruka has that bad feeling, because arm cuts rarely stay polite. The monster keeps lecturing like a villain with no exit strategy. But Haruka answers with murder-level certainty, promising to kill it himself. The blue beast barks for tails, smugly stalling Haruka's advance. Haruka answers with water power, and that confidence starts cracking fast. Pressure surges through the room, while even the monster doubts itself. The so-called God test activates, making this fight feel absurdly official. The system scans Haruka, then starts evaluating his stats coldly. Haruka twists through the blast, still refusing to back down. Physical enhancement kicks in, and his body screams through the lightning. The explosion slams outward, turning the battlefield into a glare storm. The beast counters with a feral strike, pretending this is still easy. Haruka takes the hit, and suddenly that smugness looks expensive. The monster's scream fills the test, yet Haruka stays disgustingly calm. He cuts through the blast, and that confidence starts looking fake. The blue caster answers in kind, flooding the arena with support. Then the serpent beast crashes back, still pretending it owns everything. Haruka eats the blow, and now even he feels the sting. The impact shatters the floor, like the whole battlefield just laughed. But the beast's grin dies fast. Because Haruka is still rising, pain ruins his timing, and suddenly his attack loses all bite. The monster senses the slip. Gliding closer like this is easy. Meanwhile, the system keeps calculating Haruka Namika's next impossible move. The system dangles Ultra Enhancement, and Haruka chooses chaos over caution. But there's no time, so the gamble becomes a full-speed commitment. Red lightning erupts around him, turning desperation into a monster-tier buff. The serpent beast notices too late, and suddenly its swagger looks expensive. That charge lands hard. Yet Haruka keeps coming like pain is just background noise. Even his own body starts screaming, because control is officially out the window. Still, the blade drives in, and the beast's confidence starts leaking out. Its howl gets uglier, as the wound bites deeper, a gorgeous humiliation. Now the monster's eye goes wide, realizing this weak explorer is a problem. And Haruka keeps swinging, because at this point retreat would be embarrassing. Red lightning erupts around Haruka, and the gamble turns feral, while the beast's smug timing collapses under one terrifying charge. Then the system starts cashing in kills, skills, and ridiculous experience. As Yukimura Shinji plays cool on the phone, pretending this is normal, but every smug word just makes his timing look more embarrassingly late, and the childhood friend finally spots Haruka, calling him back through the wreckage. Haruka's level spikes, new skills unlock, and his head immediately hates him. Blood sprays everywhere as the monster gets punished for its bad attitude, leaving Haruka kneeling, shaking, and barely understanding the pain, because even his status window now screams that something huge just changed. Haruka gets blindsided by the system, and that's never a great sign, because his body is apparently wrecked, and the diagnostics keep piling on, with blood alcohol absurdly high, so the spinning head excuse suddenly feels valid, yet he still bets on ultra body enhancement, reckless as ever, while the blue-haired caster feeds him support and the monster heap closes in. Then the battlefield erupts into blue vapor, deleting the beast's ego, and Haruka starts realizing that vapor might still be hanging around, meaning the damage could be traveled straight to the main body. Convenient for nobody, because that thing's level requirement is 4,000, and Haruka hates that math. Still, he's already thinking of Shinji, and that's the real problem. Haruka's battered legs plant hard, choosing the nightmare before anything else. Even he pauses for a second, staring at that ridiculous little discovery, so that dark scrap on the floor was hiding the real problem. Meanwhile, the system's blue glow goes full magician, quietly cheating fate, and Haruka coolly reaches down, deciding to pocket the answer anyway. Then his body locks in, every nerve screaming as power climbs. Internal map kicks in, and his face turns deadly serious. He realizes this wasn't the 5th floor at all, but the 20th. Worse, the hardest climb anyone ever bragged about was only 12. So landing here was never progress, just a spectacularly humiliating fall. Divine insight lights up, and Haruka is still grinding through the 18th floor, while the target keeps racing ahead on the 25th. because apparently overachieving monsters exist. Haruka swears he'll catch Orochi's main body soon, then immediately starts rerunning the math, and the system coolly warns him to surpass that wall. Like this is a casual little tutorial. Ahead, a swarm of high-rank monsters blooms into view, proving subtlety died underground. So Haruka tightens his grip and admits there's no time left for hesitation now. As the evaluation begins, he charges into the pack and drowns them in pressure, then piercing insight locks on, reading weakness like the monsters forgot to hide it. Weakness attribute detection exposes the obvious, because these beasts really brought confidence to a blade fight, and with Haruka sharpening his senses, the whole massacre starts looking personal. The system nails the weak point, and Haruka cashes in hard, leaving the battlefield behind as his divine insight finally drops, then his level spikes, because apparently surviving death was just warm-up, while the pain keeps chewing at him, relentless and ugly. But he stays standing, with the blue beast pack still looming, all teeth and bad decisions. Haruka freezes for half a beat, realizing the next hit decides everything. Then water gathers at his hand, calm and vicious at once, and he fires water stream pressure cannon like Hez correcting a mistake, blasting straight through the charging beast's face, which is honestly overdue, as the torrent swallows it whole and Haruka finally turns the tide. Critical damage lands on Cerberus, and the beast's smugness gets deleted. The three-headed menace collapses, suddenly far less invincible than it imagined. Evaluation points pile up while Haruka keeps abusing divine insight, naturally. The swarm gets carved open, because subtlety was never their strong suit. Haruka digs in through the pain, sword ready, refusing to fold now. The system showers points, and his level rockets straight to 3000. Reached level 3000, because surviving death apparently counted as a warm-up. / unlocks, and Haruka learns yet another way to ruin monsters. Baphomet's allies close in, but Haruka stares back like this is lunch. So yeah, that earlier allies comment was definitely not a joke. The swarm keeps pressing in, while Haruka's stamina is nearly gone. Behind him, the blue-haired caster keeps feeding the battlefield with clean support. Haruka's eyes lock in, because collapsing now would be hilarious incompetence. The monsters pile up harder, and the system quietly counts his suffering. Then the golems show up, and even the tough guy finally blinks. Their bolt crashes through the chaos, turning panic into instant fireworks. Haruka answers anyway, unleashing a brutal strike that splits the pressure. The blast keeps rolling, and the swarm gets erased for being overconfident. Now Hez staring at the absurd horde, wondering why they're teaming up. And the spell circles glow brighter, because this fight is nowhere near done. The air turns neon with spell circles, and the swarm finally feels threatened, while one explorer loses his composure, realizing this disaster got personal, as Haruka tears through the pressure, making overconfidence look painfully stupid, and the barrage keeps pinning the monsters down, one ugly mistake at a time, before the green beast gets shredded, because bad odds never impressed him. Even the support magic keeps rolling, sealing gaps while the chaos tightens. Then Haruka drops hard through the field, still refusing to fold, and the system flashes a restart. Like reality itself needs another attempt, so strategy mode kicks in, while the poor guy beneath him panics, because Haruka's eye widens, sensing this fight is nowhere near finished. The swarm gets cocky above Haruka, then meets neon green murder, while the system finishes its cold math, and reality starts sweating, because Haruka's duel / lands clean, turning monster confidence into confetti, and the cascade keeps ripping through them, as support magic seals every gap. Then the blue-haired caster keeps stacking barriers. While the horde gets erased, Haruka hears a new threat forming, and the system flags another target, so he answers with dual edge, carving through the line like paper, and the barrage spikes his score, as the monsters get absolutely farmed, leaving him breathless for one ugly second, while the warning bells keep whining, until the next danger flashes ahead, and Haruka locks in again. Haruka's duel / carves the swarm open, turning pride into confetti. The monster's huge body still reels, but the blade keeps dictating humiliation. Across the floor, the wreckage glows like a massacre written in wood. Then a hidden memory cracks open, with a blue-eyed girl calling out. That soft reunion lands first, and the childhood friend finally recognizes Haruka. Meanwhile, the purple-haired charmer waltzes in, acting like he owns destiny. Her panic only sharpens when he keeps pressing, smug as ever. What started as flirting curdles fast, because his charm was just bait. Even his little victory speech collapses, surrounded by women and nonsense. So she demands the truth, and the whole act finally cracks. In this messy private room, the charm offensive is already turning predatory, because those eyes are exactly what someone sees before Haruka gets dragged back into it, and the smirk keeps insisting weak Haruka was never fit for explorer life, but she fires back that he obsessed over strength and nearly got himself killed. While the argument hardens into the cruel truth he still chose this path anyway, then the world snaps black as one stubborn thought refuses Haruka's funeral. Somewhere in the ruin, that refusal lands like a boot smashing reality apart, so the system throws out a ridiculous aqua cannon and starts deleting monsters until the swarm gets blasted into rubble and the battlefield finally shuts up, and Haruka levels up again, because apparently death keeps losing to spite. Remaining level 600, and Haruka's reconstruction gets sentenced anyway. The system keeps dropping the same verdict while his body hangs together by spite. Then the fallen explorer finally understands what this ridiculous reconstruction means. Everything turns weightless and brutal, like reality is trying to tear him apart. Blue light surges around his eye as the monster test starts acting up again. A barrier blooms, purple pressure spreading while Baphomet starts glaring back. Haruka snaps into motion, mocking the shielded swarm with pure battle instinct. The god test restarts, and the evaluation points start climbing fast. His evasion slips through the storm, earning points while lightning chews the floor. Then the blast launches him backward, because the universe hates clean victories. Neutralization lands hard, and the system smugly adds points. Again, Haruka keeps carving through the swarm, turning panic into profit. 30 minutes vanish in battle, while the scoreboard keeps worshipping his survival. He reels under barrier pressure, realizing direct damage is blocked, annoyingly. His body screams, pain stacks up, and dodging starts getting sloppy. The grind looks ugly now, because even he knows this is bad. Then the system vomits rewards, blasting his level upward through sheer brutality. Level 3,000, 800 hits, but Orochi still sneers there are 200 left. Haruka stares at the claim, finally asking what this reconstruction even means. The horned girl grins like a predator, casually confirming he is exhausted. Haruka's eyes snap wide, as the battlefield suddenly redefines itself, because that smug horned girl is clearly not just standing there, she's the main body. And of course she announces it like a queen, while Haruka finally realizes Orochi was never some ordinary monster, just a tired, overworked disaster who somehow caught up anyway, and now she's mocking him for the chaos he dragged through the way, which is adorable, considering every enemy here seems chained to her will. Then she leans in with that infuriating hello, testing his focus again. Haruka freezes, staring at her like the universe just made a joke, because one clean slash later, that arm is gone, and now it hurts. The severed hand still writhes, and somehow, that's the least alarming part. Then the blue-haired demon answers Haruka's shock, with pure, smug flirtation. She shrugs off the injury, acting like pain is just background noise. Haruka's glare hardens as she dares him to notice the wound. Now she wants her stolen thing back, like this whole nightmare's casual. Haruka stares, realizing she means the item, not his pathetic dignity. She hounds him harder, furious he noticed the truth behind regeneration. He finally clocks the black object, and the room gets colder. She offers a deal, but her tone screams she's controlling the terms. Of course she denies his shortcut, because queens love the illusion. Even now, she mocks Haruka's growth, smugly claiming he's nowhere near enough. But his panic says everything, because fighting her feels catastrophically hopeless. Then the system spits out a brutal verdict, 10 levels short, while his body screams collapse. Meanwhile she toys with the stolen item, threatening death if it isn't returned, and the whole god test grotesquely restarts, turning his desperation into a timed gamble. As calculations pile up, the system measures the gap, then demands one decisive move, so Haruka commits to dual-edge double slash, lunging like failure is too expensive. She blocks, grinning through the hit, and that confidence age-old arrogance deserves, except the damage is basically a scratch, triggering optimal action and absurd experience. Until target level is reached, Haruka breaks through, and the monster finally looks scared. The system rebuilds Haruka Namiki, and the battlefield starts screaming blue. Even her mockery cracks, because that pressure feels absolutely insane. The first strike lands, then the second, all raw timing. His footwork locks in, and the room gets real quiet. Now he stands there, drenched in lightning, looking disgustingly alive. One eye narrows, because the scarred kid finally feels dangerous. That demon's grin collapses fast, seeing pressure she cannot bluff through. Haruka answers with colder focus, like pain already lost its job. Even his stare sharpens, promising the next blow will hurt. No pain, just momentum. And now everyone's terrified of the gap. Haruka's senses sharpen insanely, and even pain starts losing its voice. The caster answers fast, slamming pure water power into the opening. The swarm lunges anyway, but his shout buys everyone one precious second. Magic clashes explode overhead, turning the battlefield into pretty purple chaos. Then Haruka stands dead center, casually feeding the storm like a menace. A brutal blast tears through him, and he still keeps moving. He cuts back through the demon's guard, making her confidence wobble. That smug horned monster finally panics, realizing he is absurdly fast. The exchange turns into non-stop flashes, and her control starts evaporating. Even her taunt collapses, because Haruka has completely lost his limits. Divine measurement kicks in, and the system immediately starts panicking, because even evaluation points get thrown aside. While Haruka gets boosted instead, blue screens stack up around him, calmly calling monster numbers like a tax audit, and that little this skill realization hits before he fully understands the upgrade. Then the swarm fills the air with those smug magic circles. Acting important, but Haruka just rockets through the storm, somehow looking more dangerous than gravity. The demon girl finally feels the pressure, realizing he's absurdly faster, and her shocked outburst lands like comedy, because confidence clearly expired. While Haruka carves through her defenses with red-streaked precision and zero hesitation, leaving the whole battlefield staring at a monster who just got out-monstered. The blade meets that crackling restraint, and Haruka's pressure floods the battlefield before one monster gets launched apart. While the swarm keeps pretending it still matters, then his upgraded dual-edge technique hits, and even the cocky mage starts re-evaluating reality, as 12 glowing slashes erase the defenses, leaving the whole formation looking embarrassingly fragile. Then the monsters scatter under relentless spellfire, their precious barriers collapsing like cheap props, while the battlefield turns into a carcass storm, and Haruka stands alone inside the wreckage. Even the system updates the bad news, because apparently only one enemy is left, and the demon girl shrieks back with a desperate counter, only to get overwhelmed, while Haruka tears past her opening, sliding through the gap like she owns death itself, and her smug little th says everything, because confidence just got auctioned off and sold. A brutal blue blast tears through the demon's smug defenses, and suddenly, the swarm starts dropping like trash, while that shiny support magic gets laughed off, because Haruka's 12-edge technique carves the battlefield open, and nobody's laughing now. The blue-haired demon finally looks rattled, her perfect little face cracking in disbelief. Then her body gets shredded mid-panic, leaving the whole room in absolute carnage. The system coolly updates the disaster, because apparently one enemy is still alive. Haruka just stands there in the aftermath, sword low, lightning coiling like bad news. Even the target goes quiet, with the interface basically screaming that silence won. His red eye narrows at the last opening, and the demon realizes too late. This eye moment means nothing, because Haruka already owns the ending. Haruka stares at the massacre, bloodied and baffled, because apparently he survived. Memory flickers through him, the sensation of cutting still refusing to crystallize. Even the demon's body remains grotesquely intact, which is almost insulting. Haruka cools down fast, red eyes narrowing like he already knows the answer. One thought hits hard. He survived the crisis, now get moving. The demon finally panics, realizing that underestimating him was her fatal hobby. Her disbelief sharpens into horror, because she should not be standing after that. Then Haruka drives in again, purple pressure exploding as the body folds. The demon face finally cracks, shrieking at the absurd possibility of immortality. Haruka's glare says it all. If she lives through this, has offended. The demon's smug confession lands, and that confidence already looks expensive, because Haruka keeps carving her apart, leaving even the caster speechless. While the monster queen tries a theatrical flex, promising a total wipeout, yet the system immediately flags her magic as absurdly over the threat limit, and then Haruka answers with a sharper unleash, the whole floor shaking, as one kick detonates across the arena, and the demon's balance just evaporates. The red-eyed explorer holds his stance, sword ready, finally reading the gap, then his stare catches the impossible truth. She's been hiding far worse. A full monster stack emerges behind her, making this whole situation uglier. So yeah, Haruka just found the real body, and now she's doomed. The blue demon queen mocks him, grinning like this massacre is a joke. Then she leans into the jewel, savoring his shock with obnoxious confidence. But Haruka finally snaps, dropping the restraint and turning deadly serious, and her hand flicks out a command for the tails to finish him. As the giant beast lunges, the system tags Orochi's main body and 6 tails, which is hilarious, because every clone looks trash compared to the real monster, while Haruka's boot grinds forward, refusing to budge under that ridiculous pressure, and then the arena explodes as the demon's jaw opens in pure panic. Debris and bodies fly everywhere, because subtlety already died in this fight, while Haruka keeps advancing, sword ready, looking like the final nightmare. The horde swarms too hard, and Haruka finally stops playing nice, then cuts through the giant beast's body. While another attacker gets launched, the monster's body crashes down, screaming, proving coordination means nothing when the blade lands. Haruka keeps the pressure on, bloodied face calm, making panic look embarrassingly mortal. One beast gets its throat and shoulder shredded, while the floor drinks the mess. He does not even flinch, just keeps moving as if pain were optional. His red eyes lock in, furious now, because excuses are not speed. The swarm's teamwork turns useless, and the beast realizes it is exposed. Then the blue-haired demon woman closes in, smugly thinking she still controls this. But Haruka answers with pure menace, and her arrogance suddenly feels stupid. The blue-haired demon smirks like the fight is already finished. Cute delusion. Then the others panic and order Haruka erased, as if that ever works. The beast dives in, but he's already doubting his own impossible win. Even Haruka wants a clue now, because surviving this mess is embarrassing. But then the zone clicks open, and his body starts cheating reality. The demon woman notices that skill, and suddenly her smugness gets shaky. The sword hand tightens, and even the blade feels nervous for once. A system panel snaps in, calculating the upgrade like it's routine. Red lightning erupts around Haruka, turning his rage into pure momentum, and with one savage roar, he decides this ends here, now. The blue beast fills the frame, smugly lunging like pain is a joke. Then Haruka eats the impact. Red lightning ripping the floor apart, but he keeps carving through the swarm, turning monsters into confetti, while the giant beast snaps back, and suddenly its confidence looks stupid. Haruka answers with a feral rise, every nerve screaming pure defiance. As jaws and claws close in, he still forces the blade forward, and the system calls it absurd strength. Because apparently reality can blush, yet even Haruka feels his body and head collapsing under the pressure. But the beast gets blasted anyway, screaming while he refuses to fold, until one final inferno engulfs them both, and the battlefield loses. Haruka keeps taking the hit, and somehow still stays on his feet, while the twin beasts loom overhead, thinking this hunt is already finished. Then the system calmly announces fire damage was reduced, which is honestly rude, and the blue-haired demon queen starts barking orders like the battlefield owes her rent. One monster's foot gets shredded, so yeah, the monster swagger lasts about a second. Haruka grits through the pain, trapped under that massive horned body, barely breathing, and the demon queen points at him again, furious that everyone is stalling. Yet even bloodied and cornered, his glare says the joke's still on them, because the beast starts choking on its own attack, licking Haruka's blood like an idiot, while everyone stares, confused, as this whole nightmare gets even uglier. Blue serpent beasts swarm the chamber, all teeth, horns, and bad intentions. Then their demon queen panics mid-taunt, realizing Haruka's pressure is all wrong, because the swarm's coordination collapses, while one monster starts choking on blood, and Haruka, bloodied but unbroken, stands there making their nightmare look ridiculous, which sends the queen spiraling, as she keeps pointing at him like blame helps. Yet the beast only thrashes harder, savoring his blood like some feral idiot, while she mocks the party's greedy eyes and pretends this disaster is cute. Then the system flashes Haruka's strange condition, and the truth gets uglier. Ultra body enhancement cranks his blood alcohol into berserker madness, apparently, and suddenly the beast finally gets it, because it's drinking Haruka's power. The swarm reeks of doom, and now it's basically drinking the myth of Orochi, while the blue-haired queen screams for more, acting like desperate fuel is cute. But the monster line collapses, as Haruka's pressure turns their formation into a joke, and her smug warning about last time lands badly, since he is already standing there bleeding. Then she finally flinches, because the mysterious bloodline trick is starting to make sense, since the blade wound and that horrifying answer both say he can feed on this, too. So Haruka doubles down, soaked in blood, daring them to hand over more, and the demon woman can only stare, realizing this idiot is not bluffing at all. With ultra body enhancement detonating his limits, he charges harder, screaming for the next round. Then the beast swarm lunges again, and Haruka answers with a feral bring it on. The beast swarm crashes forward, and Haruka answers with pure, bloody pressure. Already smirking through the pain, he turns the whole charge into a humiliation. The demon woman's warning about last time lands badly, because he is still standing. Then her confidence cracks, since that cursed bloodline trick suddenly makes terrifying sense. His blade wound and that disgusting answer both prove he can feed on this too. So he leans into the madness, daring them to hand over even more punishment. The demon woman just stares, realizing this idiot was never bluffing at all. With body enhancement detonating his limits, Haruka grins and demands the next round. Then he surges again, leaving the blue-furred monster scrambling under the counterattack. And that final stare says it all. He is nowhere near done yet. Haruka's blade rings out, and the bloodied brat still keeps smiling, because the monster's jaw drops next, meeting a counter that's downright insulting. Those red eyes lock in, cold and furious, with the sweat barely hiding. Then he lunges straight through the opening, carving into that smug beast. Blood sprays across the pale hand, so the demon's confidence starts leaking fast, while the blue-furred brute gets launched backward, suddenly looking way less terrifying. Haruka keeps laughing, shouting for more punishment, like pain is his favorite drink, and the swarm collapses around him, one after another, embarrassingly easy. He throws one last taunt over his shoulder, daring them to try again, because while they're stunned, he's already planning the finish, and that's ugly. And just like that, her smug warning lands. Right before Haruka answers with steel, the demon's grin flickers, because that bloodied explorer is nowhere near broken. Then the blade tears through, and the so-called surprise attack gets embarrassed instantly. Worse for her, Haruka reads it coming, like he's already bored of the trick. So she snaps about his exposed back, thinking she's clever, adorable, really. But Haruka detonates upward, and suddenly her own confidence is the thing collapsing. She finally squeals his name, catching on far too late that he's the hunter. Then he twists the advantage harder, making her own blood and panic do the talking. Her body buckles under the pressure, all that demon swagger turning into a scream. And the finish is obvious now. Haruka still standing, while she's completely finished. Haruka cuts through the panic, while the room begs him to stop. Then the demon woman gets grabbed, and her smug timing collapses instantly. Now she's the one gasping, because his blade has already ruined her opening. Even her own demands to stop it sound pathetic, dangling over his grin. His bloodied hand still stays steady, like pain is just background noise. She doubles over, choking on the fact he never lost control once. Haruka stays laughing through the damage, calling the whole scene miserable. Her outrage explodes next, but it only proves she's the one cornered. He reaches for the finishing strike, because hesitation would be embarrassing. This time, he plans to end everything before she can recover. Her blush says everything, because his blade already wrecked her opening, and her panicked orders to stop only make her sound weaker, while the blood on his hand means absolutely nothing to Haruka, because he keeps grinning through the pain, laughing at her cornered outrage. Then he unleashes Ultra Body Enhancement, and the arrogant monster finally stiffens, realizing too late that the situation is spiraling into a massacre. As 12-fold slash tears forward and turns her confidence into confetti, then the swarm gets carved apart, proving Haruka is done playing around, and the system answers with a brutal upgrade, pushing Haruka to 6,000, before the scene cuts to a quiet room, where another woman hangs tension from the ceiling. The room crackles with violent restraint, and her composure already looks fragile, because Awa's body language screams tension while every inch feels painfully intimate. Then the silence snaps, and her startled face catches the first real shock, as she spots Aoi there, ruining whatever smug private moment she expected, and now the mysterious girl gets her name. While the mood completely breaks, because Haruka's single eye says everything, recognizing Aoi like an old scar, then Yukimura drags his legendary confidence into the room, sounding absurdly pleased, only to get blindsided when Aoi asks what kind of weird charm this is, and that proud smirk finally falters, because reality just slapped him hard, while Haruka's grip stays glowing, making Shinji look embarrassingly unprepared. In this candlelit room, the first crack lands on Yukimura's smug little fantasy, and the brown-haired girl freezes when the word senpai turns personal. Then she starts defending Shinji like he's royalty, which is adorable nonsense, because she swears Haruka saved her, and that loyalty lands like a slap, while the claim that Haruka Namiki is dead gets tested by one glowing hand, and that single pink eye remembers everything, right when shock should have won. Instead, the girl admits the comfort was gentle, even body and mind. Then she names Shinji again, but the memory keeps pulling toward Haruka, until she finally blurts Haruka's name and realizes he ignored her completely, and that's when the reunion snaps shut, with Haruka staring through the room. Her jealous confession hangs there, messy and petty, like a cheap knife. Then Awa's face cracks, because Haruka's name keeps wrecking her certainty. She compares Haruka, Namiki, and Himari-senpai, and hates both apparently. The room goes dark with pressure, while Haruka's stare cuts straight through. Aoi finally remembers Haruka, and that dead rumor looks painfully stupid. She admits the comfort mattered, even body and mind, which is awkwardly sincere. Shinji gets dragged back into the mess, while Haruka steals the spotlight anyway. Then the door opens, and Aoi freezes at Shinji's dramatic arrival. Haruka turns that reunion into a disaster, and suddenly everybody's exposed. Sorry for the meltdown, she's emotional, and the whole room feels it. Even the cute little sister angle lands like a smug little ambush. Haruka stays annoyingly composed, wearing that I already won face. And then comes the real insult. Why did he charm Aoi? Shinji gets blamed for everything, because apparently Chaos needs a mascot. Her charm skill failing is hilarious, especially this stubbornly clueless battlefield. Haruka's answer says absolutely nothing, which somehow says everything. Meanwhile, the reunion keeps escalating, and the Explorers Association spills into view, until the bomb drops. They want him for the Orochi extermination team. Shinji makes his smug little pitch, acting like Haruka should join his party, but Aoi freezes him with a glare, clearly not buying his dramatic nonsense, because she's already tangled in Haruka's orbit, and Shinji's just background noise. Then the reunion gets messy fast, with Aoi clinging to Shinji's name instead, while his wandering hand and her flustered reactions turn the whole thing into embarrassment, and even her charm skill caves instantly, because Haruka's silence hits harder than flirting. As the room keeps spiraling, the Explorers Association crowds in with a bigger agenda. Then the system flashes Haruka's remaining vitality at 5%, yet Hez still standing. And now the real joke lands, because they want him for the Orochi extermination team. Inside the shattered chamber, the blue-haired demon savors human warmth, while 90 seconds vanish. She mocks the dying explorer crowd, bragging one victim survived their massacre, naturally. Then she cuts the whining short, because calling monsters rude somehow feels very on brand. Haruka's battered body becomes her pillow, and the smug smile says she's already won. The countdown drops again, so the whole room panics over why they're still hesitating. Haruka forces a final burst, freezing her for a second and making her look annoyed. She laughs off the resistance, then starts the finish, as the floor erupts in icy violence. The system suddenly treats Haruka like a specimen, sinking him with Orochi and awakening absurdly. In the white flash, his body resets stronger, because apparently death just made him useful. Haruka lies half broken. Then that blue monster starts drooling over the kill, while the whole room panics. Because the countdown keeps turning ruthless, he somehow snaps awake and presses back, leaving the beast visibly rattled. Then he reaches for a sword that is nowhere near him. Genius move. And the sudden confusion on his face is priceless, honestly. The Demon Queen just lounges there, smug as ever, until the pressure spikes, and even his shout of disbelief can't hide how badly she's got him shook. 1 second later, the battlefield is a mess of bodies and sheets, leaving everyone wondering how his enemy is crushed, while he is the one naked. And somehow, that is the most humiliating reset this nightmare could deliver. Trapped in that crimson room, Haruka looks half dead, yet still calculating escape. Then he slams into the beast anyway, because quitting was never on the menu. The monster recoils, and his confused shout only makes the mess look worse. Even that red-eyed glare falters, as his own thoughts start slipping apart. Meanwhile, the Demon Queen lounges smugly, claiming the noise is ruining her mood. Her intrusion rattles the whole exchange, and Haruka finally realizes he is exposed. She grins like a spoiled tyrant, proudly calling him master with terrifying confidence. Then the scene snaps outward, showing the bizarre room and scattered gear below. Haruka stands ready in stolen clothes, while her protection speech turns absurdly possessive. And somehow this humiliating chaos becomes a possessive little victory for her. Haruka's half-dead glare cracks, and the room realizes he's still arguing, because even now he wants an explanation, like this disaster is normal, while the red-eyed survivor wonders why he's alive at all, and the Demon Queen answers with smug little teasing, pretending she owns the scene. Then the absurd setup becomes obvious. Monster-sized trouble, teacups, and stolen clothes. As she calmly calls this a contract, like that somehow fixes everything, Haruka stares at the word, suddenly realizing he's been looped into her terms, and she doubles down, insisting she synchronized him after his first death, and that memory detonates like ice, proving she really did rewrite the whole fight. So he admits the worst part. Maybe he turned monstrous too. The Demon Queen snickers at his panic, acting like this is already settled. While Haruka catches the ugly truth, he is apparently bound to her now. She keeps pushing, daring him to test the new contract. Because subtlety is dead. Then even her pet wording gets nastier, with that eye-lending trick, ridiculous as ever. Haruka finally demands her identity, and she answers like a smug catastrophe. Hachi, she says, as if naming herself somehow makes this less illegal. The name lands, and suddenly the whole eye-lending scheme clicks into place. Haruka realizes the swap feels wrong, yet his body is already sinking. She celebrates that beautiful status increase, like she just won a lottery. Then she leans in, ready to explain the details, because of course she is. Explorers Association conference room, where every veteran stares at chaos on the screen, and Ishihara Katsuhiko grandstands over the Orochi case like he owns disaster, because the attacks have exploded across dungeon towns, while rebuilding keeps losing badly, and the briefing drops Orochi's 6 forms, plus that ugly weakness from recent battles. Then Ayaka coolly explains high-concentration alcohol as the squad's newest weapon, meaning Orochi drinks, weakens, and suddenly behaves embarrassingly human, so the team partners with a major brewing company and starts stockpiling supplies, then locks the battlefield to the dungeon's 4th floor. Because subtlety is extinct, and the plan turns savage. Lure Orochi in, get them drunk, then wipe them out, while Ayaka calmly reveals someone must lead the front line and carry the charge. Leave that to me. And the room instantly feels the pressure, because the whole squad freezes while the town's fragile morale hangs there. Then Yukimura gets named like a target, and suddenly he's sweating. While Haruka's smug confidence lands harder than any cheap pep talk, the blonde challenger practically short-circuits, seeing who's really running this, as water magic floods the cavern and turns the battlefield into a playground, and Haruka starts explaining how absurdly convenient that spell power is. Now the whole plan clicks, with dragons, weakness, and drunken monsters in play. The blue-haired caster acts offended, but her fear is doing all the talking, and Haruka just smirks, because this ugly strategy is working beautifully. Inside the flooded dungeon, Haruka's answer lands cold, sharp, and annoyingly confident, because being called Haruka-sama clearly still feels weird, but he owns it anyway. The blue-haired caster pushes the real issue, and suddenly urgency stops pretending to be polite, since rescuing Himari from Shinji's grip is now the only thing that matters. That name hits, and even the horned girl freezes, realizing this is not romance, it's just admiration, while Haruka shuts down the gossip with effortless, dead-serious composure. Then Shinji's face tightens as he finally understands the situation, and yep, embarrassing, because Haruka's calm little reassurances hit harder than any dramatic hero speech. Nothing fancy, just a terrifyingly clear declaration that he can finally fight Shinji himself now. Cut to the dungeon's 4th floor Great Plaza, where the next disaster is waiting. The plaza is busy with barrel hauling, and rumors start moving faster as the armored girl surveys the work, cool-faced, clearly used to authority. Then Yukimura barges in with that polite nonsense, targeting Tachibana with awkward reverence, while the blue-clad companion just watches, already sensing this is going sideways. Aoi finally answers, and his thank you routine lands with zero romance, just panic, because his grand explanation boils down to nerdy admiration for her explorer debut, which makes the poor man sound like a fanboy auditioning for approval, embarrassingly hard, until Aoi hits him with the real question. And the room gets personal, while Shinji, of course, keeps pretending his reputation is somehow impressive, but the shadow behind him reminds everyone that humiliation can get much worse. Someone asks after Tachibana, and Aoi quietly admits old history. Her promise lands hard, because saving him has become personal now. Nearby, the blue-haired rival watches the room and its awkward tension. Aoi wishes Haruka were here, proving how badly she needs backup. Shinji presses closer with that smug charm, somehow proud of it. Gross. Aoi refuses to wobble, determined to exploit any weakness in him. Then the system flags Orochi like danger, and the whole arena tightens. Haruka scans the Great Plaza, where 15 humanoids suddenly register. He barks for Hachi to pause, and the blue demon demands action. Energy flares across the handoff, and the battlefield lurches forward. Blue water pressure surges, and Haruka's ally panics at the sudden halt. So the demon girl spots nearby explorers and casually sizes up their target. That target turns out to be Hachi, and she plays innocent, naturally. Then the phone flips into view, proving the missing object is hers. The demon sees the message about Orochi squad duty, and gets suspicious, so she cuts through the nonsense, labeling them enemies with terrifying ease. Haruka answers by checking their movements first, like this is homework, and the system glow snaps around him, triggering that ridiculous gods test. Meanwhile, the others stare at Haruka and Shinji together, completely baffled, because rumor already says Haruka is dead, which is hilariously wrong. So Haruka's admirer rumor hits first, and Yukimura looks entertained, while Aoi just stays composed. Then the blue-haired caster confirms it, leaving Haruka awkwardly boxed in, which is honestly priceless. And the demon woman clocks the situation immediately, acting smug because she knows something good happened. Elsewhere, the whole hall opens up, with explorers gathered like extras before the next disaster. Even the stacked barrels feel suspicious there, because nothing in this story stays ordinary for long. Then the leaders snap everyone back to business, ordering a retreat until Orochi finally shows up. Ai goes silent at Haruka's teasing, while Shinji absolutely loves the embarrassment on display. He keeps pushing the frontline duty angle, and she lets him boast like that changes reality. Meanwhile, the dark-haired girl beside him jumps in to defend the guy, which is adorable and predictable, and Aoi's close-up says everything, because she's finally realizing Haruka's name carries real chaos. Ioi fights her own feelings. While watching Haruka's dangerous charm, Shinji spots Orochi's shadow and starts acting like a desperate genius. The hall erupts with explorers, as Aoi stiffens and the gossip spreads. Leaders call for retreat, because Orochi's heat source is finally incoming. Haruka drops the threat fast, and everybody else embarrassingly needs rescuing. Monsters crash forward, while the blue caster calmly keeps Haruka covered. Shinji finally pivots to protecting women, and sounds absurdly noble. The team splits the assignment, leaving Orochi to Shinji's side. Aoi answers Haruka's teasing, already annoyed at how troublesome he is. Then Haruka smirks and asks everyone to do their best for the team. The crowd instantly worships Shinji, while the hooded girl grins at the chaos, as Haruka's backup floods the field with clean, nasty water pressure, and Shinji smugly calls the opening, begging Tachibana to strike now, but the gap stays non-existent, so the armored girl abandons him for Orochi. Then the blue beast barrels in, and that demon woman acts insulted, while the orange-haired explorer panics, shouting for a kill cross like that's elegant, before the whole lane ignites, turning the arena into pure screaming fire, and the cloaked ally takes the hit, only to hear she was saved, so Tachibana gets handed off to Haruka, with everyone finally obeying, and the hidden girl laughs, because her little plan actually worked. The horned girl grins, because she already knows what Haruka becomes now. Yukimura sizes up this woman like a prize, then calls her a bomb, but the blue caster's barrier holds, and the beast's pressure turns ugly, so the fox-eared girl teases Haruka, clearly expecting fireworks and chaos. Then the blue monster slams in, leaving the orange-haired explorer horrified. Aoi freezes at the impact, while the crowd suddenly panics around Shinji. Shinji loses his swagger fast, staring down a monster that picked him. Haruka answers with pure explosive force, and the thing finally backpedals. Even Shinji recoils, whining that the monster keeps chasing him alone. So Haruka seals its movement with gravity, turning panic into domination. Violet magic blooms again, and the barrier finally keeps the disaster contained, while some idiot gasps that destruction got erased, because denial is adorable. Then the twin monsters lunge forward, and Haruka's pressure answers them brutally. The smug caster pretends this is elegant, casually mocking destruction like a hobby, and the town trio freezes when the orange-haired leader demands protection. As the reunion side drama explodes, Aoi gets dragged into Shinji's nonsense. One beast still barrels in, but Haruka cuts through its momentum anyway, while the crowd panics and the heroine gets flattened for underestimating him, because gravity slams down next, and even the blazing monster starts folding. So the battlefield learns the lesson fast. Haruka owns the monster now. The blue-haired caster is already furious, blaming Haruka's reckless overkill. Behind her, the brown-haired support girl is left babbling, utterly shaken. Then the pink-haired noble cuts in, calling Haruka and her disciple. She half expects protection, but still acts like she owns the battlefield. Haruka's pressure answers instead, launching the smug fool into humiliation. The black-haired girl gets crushed next, begging the chaos to stop. Aoi finally spots the collapse, screaming for Yukimura to shut up. Yukimura grins through the mess, then casually dumps Orochi on Haruka. The hooded ally promises to handle the rest, while Haruka's name echoes, and the blue-eyed demon girl freezes, because that tiny gesture means tail. The blue beast gets carved up mid-roar, and that's the start of panic. Meanwhile, the purple-haired fool realizes, too late, Haruka is not bluffing. Then the swarm gets shredded by absurd sword pressure, ruining every smug plan. Haruka drops in like a disaster with a pulse, and the mood flips. Even the battlefield itself bends as his power drags Orochi into focus. Ai finally spots him, stunned enough to forget how breathing works. Haruka answers Yukimura's call with that calm smile that says, obviously, yes. Aoi stumbles closer, asking if He's okay, while he barely slows. She tries to reassure him, but the damage is already looking ugly. And Haruka still acts relieved, because apparently surviving chaos is his hobby. Haruka's reunion lands hard, and Aoi clings to him like panic had knees. Then he coolly wonders if the atmosphere changed, because dramatic understatement is his hobby. The battlefield rumor mill catches up, and everyone freaks over Orochi's one-shot collapse. Aoi blurts her messy explanation, admitting she came for his belongings, not romance. Her alarm spikes as she spots the injured pair, and Haruka just keeps standing there, He casually drops the killed by you bomb, ruining Yukimura's whole confidence package. Yukimura's face folds immediately, because apparently resurrection was not on his menu. He spirals into disbelief, while Haruka answers that death was only the beginning. Aoi stares, horrified, as Haruka treats dying like a minor scheduling inconvenience. And now even the suspicious princess realizes this comeback is way too unnatural. Yukimura's smug little ambush starts wobbling, and the room gets loud fast, with everyone circling Haruka while blaming his Orochi win on pure luck. But the blue-haired caster already knows that nonsense sounds ridiculous now, and Yukimura doubles down, acting like confidence fixes humiliation, which it never does. Then Haruka answers with one brutal strike, and the battlefield practically detonates around him. Yukimura instantly folds, because that pressure feels less human and more like judgment, while Aoi stares at the aftermath, realizing this is way beyond normal perception, and the horned blue-haired monster finally loses its smugness, cornered at last. Even the orange-haired leader is left frozen, calling that power a total violation, as Aoi checks Haruka's status and discovers death somehow isn't the end. Haruka's bloodied stare says the nightmare is still bowing, not winning. Yukimura's confidence collapses on contact. While the floor keeps humming from Haruka's pressure, Aoi rushes in, calling for Shinji, and instantly finds the answer ugly. One sharp reprimand later, Yukimura gets folded like cheap armor. Absolutely humiliating, because Aoi's name finally lands, and the reunion hits harder than any monster. Another observer freezes nearby. Realizing this wrecked scene somehow includes Haruka, too, Yukimura keeps posturing through the pain, proving arrogance really is a full-time clown act. Then Haruka drops the truth. He tested Iwa's idol, and the joke backfires. The smug grin stays on his face even as the purple aura screams trouble, and Haruka's stunned companion finally confirms the impossible. He's really here. The smug rumor of Haruka's death lands, and Aoi freezes in disbelief, but she quickly remembers Hez too stubborn to stay buried. Obviously, while Yukimura's arrogant little victory lap starts collapsing in real time. Then the disgusting trick comes out. He targeted her sister instead, and Aoi's reunion turns explosive as Haruka's name finally hits hard, because the girl's faith snaps into power, and the enemy gets shredded, right as Haruka steps in, swinging through the chaos like he owns it. The monsters panic. His strength feels absurd, and even rivals start sweating, while the battlefield widens to include allies, nobles, and one very nervous onlooker, and Yukimura's face says it all. This little comeback just got personal. Haruka snaps the blade down, yanking Aoi's attention back through the chaos, while an unseen helper calls, and his glare says trouble found him again. Then the teal pressure erupts, because this battlefield suddenly needs less talk, and the blue-haired caster drops in, making support look almost smug, as she twists the enemy's formation, turning their confidence into confetti. Then her grin sharpens, because apparently this disaster was just her warm-up, while the spectators freeze, realizing that woman is pure destruction magic, and the stunned girl in white finally looks up, completely busted. As the reunion lands, Awa's face drains, then recognition hits hard, and Haruka's name cuts through everything, pulling her back to normal. Haruka leans in with that bloodied grin, and Aoi instantly freezes. She admits Shinji was manipulating her, which is awkwardly obvious now. Then she blurts Haruka's name, finally connecting the dots, and panics. The horned demon queen just smirks, because apparently this chaos amuses her. She congratulates herself for fixing Ai, while the others stare dumbfounded. Haruka calmly accepts the result, and casually calls that destruction magic tamed. The battlefield erupts in a glowing sigil, swallowing everyone in absurd pressure. The demon girl approves the spectacle, while the onlookers lose all composure. Aoi stands stunned beside the team, realizing the situation is completely insane. Then the blue-haired monster cozying up to Haruka starts acting far too familiar. A clingy plea hangs in the air, and Haruka stays coldly unbothered. Then the mysterious blue-haired girl finally recognizes Haruka, with stunned awe, while the demon queen's handiwork looms behind them, smugly framing the reunion. Because if it's Himara's sidekick, the kid's crush spirals into a confession. Green flames surge everywhere, turning the whole scene into theatrical overkill, and the support crew freaks out, as Haruka casually calls this nonsense broken. Ai is left speechless, realizing this ridiculous mess is actually serious. Then the blue-haired girl starts rambling about old rescues and admiration, while Haruka gets dragged into her obsession, right as she notices Io, and the green-haired girl finally admits that dead news wrecked her completely. But the demon queen's smug framing is about to get violently inconvenient, because her spell work is already squeezing the whole battlefield into chaos. While Haruka cuts through the swarm and makes support magic look easy, leaving the enemy to yell about forgiveness, which is adorable and useless, since Yukimura's swagger finally cracks when Haruka answers with that threat, and the wild aura only gets nastier, clinging to every emotion like a curse, as Haruka's glare turns razor-sharp, daring anyone to test him further. Right then, the purple-haired show-off keeps posturing, acting like this is fun, but AOI is getting dragged into the mess, screaming for the fight to stop, and Haruka realizes backing off now would hurt her, so he pushes harder. Yukimura keeps grinning like a genius, until Haruka's aura spoils the joke, and that so-called interruption gets smashed aside as the battlefield refuses his tantrum, while Haruka's blade carves through defenses, making support magic look embarrassingly effortless. Even the confident challenger starts bleeding pride when Haruka calls his bluff too shallow, because the purple-haired show-off's clean little routine gets clipped and sent skidding away, and Awa's panic cuts through everything, begging them to stop this ridiculous disaster now, but Haruka doubles down, refusing to lose because backing off would betray her. Then the pressure spikes so hard the enemy's entire body starts twisting under it, leaving the monster swarm and its grotesque core choking on purple chaos. Very impressive, really, until Aoi finally sees him clearly again, and Haruka hears her voice. Right on cue, Aoi becomes the emotional target, and Shinji starts spiraling, while the blue-haired caster gets dragged into chaos, bound by those obscene purple restraints, and Shinji's smug little laugh says everything, like winning is already guaranteed, but Haruka cuts in from below, sword ready, turning the whole battlefield into a trap. Then Aoi finally recognizes him, screaming Shinji's name and questioning his ridiculous behavior, as the demon woman keeps tightening around him, acting shocked that resistance still exists. Haruka hammers the pressure deeper, exposing the rod of hatred, envy, and shame, until Shinji practically begs for more devotion, because apparently humiliation is his love language, and the monster core starts buckling under that absurd purple chaos. Very embarrassing for everyone involved. Then Aoi's voice lands cleanly, and Haruka finally hears her again. Awa's name tears through the chaos, and suddenly the reunion feels real, while Haruka stays buried in pressure, trapped inside that suffocating purple nightmare. Shinji snarls like a genius, but the blue demon only calls him pathetic, because he's siphoning Awa's despair, turning her emotions into his own fuel. Then the witch shifts, promising to break her slowly, which is hilariously bold. As Shinji wallows in the boost, practically tasting power like it's a reward, until Haruka crashes in with explosive force, making the whole taunt look stupid, and Shinji's so shocked by the high-gravity banishment, he completely loses it, because even A-rank pride shrivels when Haruka's pressure starts overwhelming reality, and Aoi finally locks onto him again, ready to drag Haruka back down from madness. Haruka crashes back into the chaos, and the whole battlefield instantly remembers fear. Shinji basks in purple power, grinning like arrogance ever saved anybody. Awa's emotions get weaponized, while that smug monster turns her pain into fuel. The demon's mockery lands hard, then it dares Haruka to kneel, ridiculous timing. Instead, Haruka throws out aid and force, making Shinji's little act look pathetic. Aoi doubles over from the pressure, because bravado is useless when reality bites. Haruka keeps pressing forward, and the magic around him starts shredding confidence. Shinji finally hesitates, staring at Haruka like the laws of nature just quit. The system's judgment hangs nearby, but Haruka is clearly rewriting that script. Aoi locks onto him again, and this nightmare just became a desperate reunion. Aoi freezes, because Haruka's face just reappears through the chaos, while Shinji's battlefield theatrics crack around Haruka and the caster's barrier. The smug demon pokes at Awa's pain, and that's a fatal mistake. Haruka answers with blood-red fury, vowing no mercy for her tormentors. Shinji blinks in disbelief, suddenly noticing Haruka stopped pretending entirely, because Haruka's pressure keeps crushing the arena, exposing Shinji's fake hero act. The idiot still sneers, calling everyone hypocrites while getting outclassed in real time. Then a violet blast detonates, and Aoi finally recognizes him again. Shinji clicks his tongue, still too arrogant to learn humility, and then demands surrender, while Haruka keeps advancing like a disaster. Shinji's smug gravity trick starts failing, and Haruka just glares harder, so the desperate fool escalates, dumping absurd magic like that, fixes embarrassment, but Haruka answers with high-gravity banishment extreme, shredding the battlefield, and the whole arena caves in while his opponent freezes in stunned silence. The spell keeps roaring, yet Shinji's confidence is collapsing faster than his dignity, because Haruka breaks through the pressure and turns his attack into a joke. Then the blue-haired ally swoops in, praising him like this was obvious, while Shinji chokes on his pride and begs Haruka to back off already. Haruka refuses, dragging the panicking man by the throat with brutal control, and even Ao, plus the orange-haired leader, realize the monster is him. Shinji's tantrum finally cracks, as Haruka's purple menace smirks over precious stolen ground, while the threat just keeps staring back, and Shinji suddenly realizes he's the one losing. The blade comes down with filthy precision, leaving him bleeding out his dignity in public, and Haruka stands there untouched, a walking disaster wrapped in smug, electric calm. Shinji starts panicking hard, because getting sliced by this guy is apparently humiliating enough, so he doubles over, screaming about the pain like bravery was never part of the plan. Then the blue-haired ally watches him fold, and decides Haruka is way above normal, which only makes the spectators stare harder. As if the monster finally got a name, even the nearby explorers freeze, because the battlefield is no longer theirs to understand, and Haruka just keeps that cold, red-eyed glare, turning Shinji into a cautionary joke. Shinji lands the cheap shot, calling Haruka a pathetic level 100 weakling. But the floor answers first, and Shinji gets folded by Haruka's blade. That filthy hit leaves the proud challenger bleeding out his ego, level 6000 and worthless. Then Shinji starts bawling, stunned that getting embarrassed can hurt this badly. Haruka just stands there, calm and lethal, while the room processes the catastrophe. The blue-haired caster finally realizes this isn't talent, it's a walking disaster. Around them, the other explorers freeze, because Haruka's pressure kills all confidence. Even the demon woman with the horned crown hears the healing request and accepts. The scene cuts to the wider rescue zone, where medics scramble around the injured, and there's Haruka again, still wrecking the room while everyone else plays catch-up. Under the moonlit ruin, Haruka's glare turns the battlefield into a funeral. Somebody whispers for Himari-senpai, and even that sounds pathetic now. The blue-haired caster breaks under the sight of that bloodied monster aura. Meanwhile, Haruka keeps standing there, making terror look embarrassingly easy. The orange-haired leader calls for restraint, but Haruka is already the crisis. Aoi sees him and panics, while medics drag bodies through the wreckage. Haruka then calms the room with that infuriatingly gentle reassurance. Like chaos, he moves out with the others, leaving the stunned explorers scrambling behind. Another worried voice checks on Himari, and the answer comes out shaky. Haruka just smiles, because even exhausted, he still owns the whole scene. Aoi rushes the reunion first, checking on Haruka with trembling relief, and he answers like a monster, somehow calm after all that carnage, while she softens instantly, grateful he is still standing there. Then the orange-haired leader watches him and loses the confidence fast, because Haruka's old promise weighs heavier than that tiny keychain, apparently. The blue-haired horned woman just smirks, enjoying everyone else's panic, as the hooded observer and Haruka's group hold the field together. Then Haruka waves off the chaos and keeps moving with his allies, and even the shaken explorers thank him for saving them from Orochi, calling 3 bodies down a huge victory, like he did the impossible casually. And the call lands, with Shinji Yukimura captured too, because the explorers are already heading back to base, absurdly enough, while the witnesses gush that Haruka was genuinely amazing, and Orochi fell cheap, which leaves the bald guy stumbling over his awe like it's somehow embarrassing. Then the mysterious horned caster cashes in her reward, shameless as ever, and Haruka, of course, just asks for her name again, casually, because hey's Haruka Namiki, not some disposable side character. So the room freezes when that level 100 rumor gets weaponized, and even the smug bystanders start realizing this weakling is terrifying, as the whole squad reprocesses that leveling up just got brutally expensive. AOI cuts in, shocked by the mood, while the room gets instantly awkward. Then the black-haired explorer offers thanks and a little reward on principle, but Haruka treats it like a joke, as if gifts are beneath him, and the name Haruka Namiki lands again, cracking the whole atmosphere wide open, because now even the smug faces realize this weakling isn't ordinary at all. So the reward gets handed over, and the whole thing feels hilariously small, while the blue-haired caster basks in victory, acting like this was all obvious, as Haruka finally walks out, looking way too calm for that disaster. Then the reunion turns soft, with Himari praised for helping the team, and the final sting is simple. The admired person stays back this time. Haruka brushes off support drama, and the air instantly gets smug. The reply comes out hesitant, because nobody else gets to sound that fearless. Then Aoi lands his full name, and the whole mood cracks open. By the next day, the town is calm, which is almost insulting. Haruka and Hachi head to the Explorers Association together, looking routine. 2 masked allies trail through business district streets, acting weirdly casual. The blue-haired caster greets Haruka like victory already belongs to her. Even the game of disaster hits a wall, and she complains about recharge limits. Haruka's blank stare says everything, like Hez already done with this nonsense. Then comes the cute reminder, wait a day, because power still has cooldowns. The blue-haired caster freezes at the first glitch, because recharge sounds ridiculous, and the black-haired explorer casually explains that money fixes the whole scam, meaning paid gacha is just spending cash for random luck. How charmingly predatory. Then he points out stronger pulls exist, while weaker ones get embarrassed on command. The hooded caster panics over the odds, realizing the system eats wallets for sport, while Haruka stays unreadable, as if this nonsense is beneath his bloodstained priorities. She admits she has no money, so the whole dream instantly faceplants, and he shrugs that anyone can still make accounts and grind for earnings, which sends her spiraling into work talk, because apparently explorers have bills too, and his final glance says Hachi's problem is bigger than class. Right now. In the bright street, the hooded mystery draws stares, while Haruka ignores them. Earlier, that battlefield turned savage, and the allied swarm held only because Haruka did. Now every lens is pointed at him, so the rumors start sprinting ahead. Even from the crowd, the curious whispers mark her presence as the one everyone notices. Then the talk gets uglier, branding the disaster woman as Orochi and calling Haruka by name. The blue-haired caster panics over his attention, then has to correct herself, awkwardly. Haruka just remembers the first meeting, when her shameless offer tried to rewrite him. Back then, the blue-haired girl practically glowed, vowing to become an explorer too. So when he finally snaps back, the whole exchange lands like a tiny humiliation. And in the street's aftermath, the money talk hits hard, because gacha wants rent. Even the gossip is sprinting ahead now, roasting Hachi for yesterday's obsession. High above the city, some guy just stands there, radiating suspicious confidence. At Explorer Association headquarters, the paperwork trap starts swallowing everybody whole. The reception desk turns into a battlefield of forms, boots, and awkward stares. Then Haruka and the hooded blue-haired ally stroll in, and the room chills. Ai recognizes him instantly, while her panic politely forgets how to function. That lands hard enough to make the whole reunion feel deliciously unfair. Haruka gets cornered by admiration, while she insists she is Hachi's friend. Then the Demon Queen starts flirting with humiliation, calling him master like it's casual, and Haruka just stares, because this mess is somehow even dumber than expected. The receptionist finally smiles, acting way too calm, and says she understands. While the explorers gather at headquarters, boxed in by paperwork and awkward silence, then the teal-uniformed woman starts the briefing, asking why everyone got dragged here, and Haruka gets told to hear it all inside her office. Naturally, before Ayaka Kyogoku steps out with polished grace, politely begging for a moment, then she spots Haruka Namiki, and suddenly her confidence turns adorably dangerous, introducing herself from the Explorers Association, like this isn't already a setup, because she watched Haruka and the hooded ally handle Orochi way too well, so she reports them upstairs, while upper management gets suspiciously excited, and Haruka freezes, because now even Tachibana and Ishihara are getting summoned, which means this mess just escalated. Even tomorrow would be fine, if headquarters didn't feel this suspicious, because Ayaka Kyogoku smiles like this briefing is totally under control, while Haruka, the hooded ally, and the elevator stare down everyone, and the black-haired explorer keeps acting tough like management forgot his ranking. Then Haruka Namiki gets identified, and the room instantly loses its nerve, as the system confirms his absurd power climbing into the stratosphere, with the blue-haired caster admitting they've been watched far too long, and the winged observer quietly agrees this situation is getting dangerous, while Haruka basically says, "Yeah, you noticed. Good job finally catching up." Right before the elevator opens and the next disaster walks in, Haruka and the hooded ally arrive, dragging a swaggering witness into trouble. A gloved hand knocks, because even courage needs a formal invitation here. Ayaka opens up, all charm and precision, pretending this isn't a power scene. The association's chairman stares outside, already sensing someone ridiculous is coming. Headquarters looms ahead, and Haruka's reputation poisons the entire room. The chairman's expression hardens, then Yukimura watches the legend walk in. Haruka's red-eyed glare and the winged girl's silence make confidence look stupid. Aoi proudly claims she brought him, and the chairman immediately loses altitude. She even volunteers to retreat, as if this meeting wasn't already disastrous. The chairman thanks Haruka, proving respect is cheap once reality finishes talking. Ayaka slips in politely, all charm and control, trying to soften the blow. While the chairman already feels Haruka's entrance turning this headquarters into a funeral, the room freezes as the hooded pair arrive, and manners start sweating. Then Akihito Yazawa finally steps forward, flexing chairman status like it matters, but Haruka's clipped response, and that awkward pause make the whole welcome wobble, so the introductions continue, with blue-haired support standing there like it's impressive, until Akihito spots the winged girl and asks who she is, casually risky, and Aoi drops Haruka's name, detonating the tension like a perfectly timed bomb. Suddenly everyone is staring at the chairman, realizing he's not the only monster here, because Haruka looks gentle outside, but that pressure says he could erase the room. Haruka's cold stare lands first, and the room already feels outclassed, while the blue-haired caster quietly admits he's hiding something, but can't explain it. Haruka just smirks at the suspicion, because of course he would. Then he asks why they wanted him here this fast. Like the chairman owes him answers, Akihito stays polished and grateful, acting gracious while handing out praise like damage control. Then he drags up the Orochi incident, thanking Haruka for crushing that disaster. And wow, the chairman even points to Kyogoku's report, saying they both fought brilliantly. But the real flex is Haruka's mention, because one rumor and the whole room stiffens. Akihito tries to pivot, and then drops the bomb that Haruka must not lie, because the lie is obvious, and Haruka's shocked face says the chairman just saw through everything. The interrogation starts with Orochi on the table, and Haruka getting cornered, while green pressure erupts behind him, making that smug setup look painfully fragile. The blue-haired caster freezes at the signal, then realizes Haruka is hiding something massive, because that mythical class magic nonsense clearly wasn't the whole story. Not even close. The word itself makes the room twitch, and suddenly everyone wants the hidden truth, but the system chokes on Haruka, failing to pin him down like some cheap scanner, which only makes the blue-haired demon woman mock the whole stunt as a human reflex. Then she admits she once got burned, so now she watches every trick like a professional. Her eyes narrow as she confirms Haruka's information is absurdly overloaded, and, with the battlefield glowing behind him, she finally treats him like a real monster. Now the chairman tests that cup, poking at Haruka's buried menace, and the room leans in, because strength never means this much trouble. Then his scan spirals into glowing nonsense, utterly failing to pin him down, while the magic swirls like a smug little miracle begging to be judged. At the mention of Namiki and Hachi, the hallway freezes in disbelief, because Ayaka's answer lands clean, and the chairman's briefing suddenly has teeth. Then a blade meets pressure, and the whole corridor screams in metal, as flames explode around the red-eyed fighter, making arrogance look deliciously stupid. But even that chaos gets swallowed when the blue-haired caster panics, and suddenly everyone realizes Haruka's power just woke up. Again. The corridor opens on chaos, and Haruka's name slices through the green haze. A startled girl freezes, while the green-haired explorer shouts for her to stay back. One glance at Haruka's pressure is enough to make confidence look ridiculous. Then the magic swells into a monstrous green torrent, swallowing the hall's sanity. The chairman's proud little reading collapses, because Haruka's output is pure nonsense. Even Haruka admits things are bad, yet still keeps the nightmare under control. The system starts calculating like a desperate accountant, and names him the best option. But his divine observation is busted, so he charges straight into the storm anyway. The blue-haired ally gets reassigned to support duty, while Haruka handles the front. And just when everyone panics, Himara's name and Haruka's return hit like lightning. The corridor erupts with crimson pressure, and Haruka stops pretending nicely. His aura detonates into a monstrous clash, making the swarm look pathetic. Even the battlefield noise bends, because that level of output is absurd. He keeps pushing anyway, turning panic into something dangerously controlled. The system scans him like a broken calculator, then crowns him priority. Yet the reading still cannot save anyone, so the storm keeps escalating. The blue-haired caster freezes, while Haruka's frontline pressure keeps swallowing everything. Then Himara's name cuts through the chaos, and Haruka grabs her hard. The whole field splits under that surge, like reality finally flinched. And even the survivors can only stare as Haruka refuses to fall. Haruka's red-eyed glare cuts through the wreckage, and everyone freezes, while the blue-haired healer's bloodied hand proves this battlefield kept charging price. Then that horned demon woman casually steals the spotlight, acting untouchable as ever, with Haruka still looming behind her, because apparently surviving once was not enough, until Aoi finally recognizes him, and the mysterious reunion hits like a bullet, while Haruka somehow flips the concern back on her, as if has the injured one, and the orange-haired explorer just watches, wide-eyed, at that ridiculous tenderness, because the demon woman's smug little smile says she already knows the answer, so she leans into the moment, teasing him with practiced confidence and zero shame, and Aoi, flustered beyond saving, can only thank him for coming back. The horned demon woman casually calls for fast treatment, already acting untouchable, while her water magic swallows the wound and turns panic into smug reassurance. Then she leans in with that ridiculous confidence, claiming Haruka belongs to her now, and the veteran explorer just stares, realizing she healed him in one obnoxious breath. Aoi freezes at the sight of the demon woman's effortless recovery, then finally spots Haruka, and the reunion hits so hard even the battlefield garbage feels emotionally underqualified. Haruka checks on Aoi instead of himself, which is honestly peak overprotective nonsense, while the black-haired ally and orange-haired leader watch, both realizing this is serious now, because the demon woman's aura explodes behind them, daring anyone to call her bluff, and Haruka answers by tightening the pressure, making the whole room feel doomed. The demon woman grins at Haruka, calling his monstrous pressure wonderful, and naturally, she praises both fighters as stronger than reports claimed, then boasts her blood is boiling. So the battlefield answers with a furious launch, green and black power flooding upward, while the explorers rally around Haruka and the blue-haired caster, all finally committing. Because the demon woman's offensive gets cut apart, and Haruka's ally seals the opening, then Aoi spots the ridiculous return, and instantly panics with a full-body stop, as Haruka keeps her from getting dragged in, while the swarm gets ordered to stay, and the white-haired leader reaches for control, only to be told to stay. 2. Even the blue-haired demon woman gets pinned by that pressure, staring like this is illegal, because Haruka's glare says the reunion is over, and the real fight starts now. Aoi freezes at the sight of Haruka's return, and that reunion hits hard. Ayaka tries to steady the room, while Haruka's presence keeps rewriting panic. The explorers gather around the shattered hall, because nobody wants to miss this. Even the chairman ends up broom in hand, looking painfully exposed in defeat. He apologizes for the mess, which is hilarious coming from a man in charge. Ayaka cuts in immediately, reminding everyone who the chairman is supposed to be. She even scolds the panic, saying Haruka's power would wreck everything nearby. The chairman quietly accepts the embarrassment, because there is no arguing that logic. Then the black-haired explorer demands an explanation. Staring at the absurd scene, Haruka's camp apologizes, and the whole room realizes the crisis just escalated. Ayaka's polite inspection lands like a trap, because this invite had strings. Haruka answers without flinching, and that alone makes the room tense. Then she casually connects him to Hachi and the enemies, which is rude and accurate. The claim gets even worse, because Orochi is apparently the whole disaster. Haruka freezes the room with that look, while everyone pretends this is normal. The chairman blinks at the logic, like he just met reality's punchline. Then the demon woman enters the conversation, and suddenly the air gets expensive. She smugly asks how they knew, as if they deserve applause. The chairman starts explaining, trying to sound smooth while standing on a collapse. And the demon girl still stares back, now finally realizing the joke is on her. Under the chairman's spotlight, the whole room feels one bad step from collapse. Then the blue-haired demon girl confirms the monster's identity, real smug about it. Haruka cuts in with that dead-eyed stare, making everyone else look painfully slow. The chairman connects the dots, and yes, it's somehow a dungeon-born wind lindworm. Haruka asks if the thing has a known human link, because subtlety is overrated. She answers with a casual little confession, admitting history with lindworm like it's gossip. Worse, she says he's the same as her, so humans clearly ruined her standards. Then comes the masterpiece. He made a contract with humans, and she hates that fact. Haruka immediately ties it to Hachi, which makes the demon girl reconsider everything. By the end, even she has to ask what he really is. In the briefing room, the peach-haired staffer fumbles out the first shocking reveal, and the chairman finishes the ugly math. She's half human, half monster. Then the explorer calmly adds the real bombshell. Her mother was contracted, which makes Haruka's dead-eyed glare hit even harder. Naturally, as the brown-haired girl processes that these half-bloods really exist, and admits it's her first time seeing one up close, while the peach-haired woman begs them not to dig deeper, claiming embarrassment. Before confessing she hides it unless emotions make the monster traits leak, Haruka answers with rare sympathy, realizing that burden is genuinely rough, and the blue-haired girl finally wonders if discrimination is the whole story. The staff finally admits monsters are hated, so most people stay clueless, but Haruka's reputation matters, because he saw through the disguise anyway, leaving the horned beauty visibly rattled, like being outplayed was somehow offensive. Then she shrugs off the mystery, claiming dungeon life made certainty impossible, only for Haruka to press harder, exposing her sloppy attempts at hiding it, and the peach-haired woman panics, asking if Hez really that surprised, before the black-haired explorer backs the pressure play, saying the suspicion was obvious, which sends the demon woman into full meltdown as she blames nobody for warning her, while the brown-haired girl starts connecting the dots, realizing the discrimination angle, and the final answer lands ugly. Hachi-san is the disaster class Orochi. The interrogation snaps open with one guy spiraling, because that dragon looks absurdly human now, and the orange-haired woman instantly panics, catching herself mid-theory with a mortified apology. Then Aoi barges in on the reunion, stunned that Haruka's name still carries this much chaos, because she met him in the dungeon, and now the mystery woman is suddenly part of the story. The quiet explanation lands colder than the room, with excuses about circumstances doing zero damage control, while Haruka refuses to soften it, and the smug demon beauty gets boxed in by logic, until the chairman smirks like he's enjoying the mess, calling the situation suspiciously valuable, and the whole squad gets relocated to headquarters, where the meeting room feels like a tribunal. Then the staff finally drops the brutal verdict. Haruka and Hachi aren't the enemies here, just cooperating witnesses, while everyone else scrambles to process the disaster class truth. Haruka and the blue-haired demons sit locked in tense silence, already judging each other. The chairman leans in, smirking like he's solved the whole mess. Haruka's glare cuts harder than any speech, because obvious frauds are exhausting. Mythical magic surges as the battlefield gets rewritten in one brutal blast. He admits they tried killing him before, then had the nerve to call him suspicious. The chairman coolly says everyone can relax, because Hachi's danger is documented. The blue-haired woman's rescue of humans lands like a humiliating fact. Aoi panics, realizing she's staring at the same disaster with her own eyes. The chairman insists this won't make enemies, which is adorable. Then he turns to the pair, trusting them already, and the room freezes. Ayaka opens the praise parade, naming Haruka and the Orochi squad, then drags out the reward. While everyone pretends this isn't absurdly formal, and Aoi is asked to keep the whole day secret, because apparently heroics need locking up, her hesitation says enough, since this is the kind of secret nobody forgets. Then the chairman leans in with that polished smile and thanks everyone for everything. Aoi finally answers, half flustered, half convinced this is all very sudden, but he only nods back, acting generous enough to be annoying, before turning to Namiki with the sort of tone that rewrites a life, because as of today, Haruka is officially an A-rank explorer, and the room freezes at the obvious question of why this is surprising. But now he's only D-rank, and A-rank sounds absurdly far away. The chairman still asks if that tiny label disappoints him, because why not twist the knife? Haruka just agrees, while the room pretends this confidence is normal. Aoi admits she's watched his fights all along, quietly stunned by him. That battlefield trash aura explodes again, and everyone remembers why he matters. He laughs off the promotion talk as embarrassing, yet accepts the result anyway. Then the demon woman swoons over Hachi, making the chairman look painfully patient. She blurts out that Haruka can join officially, and the room panics. The chairman confirms it with a calm yes. Like this was always inevitable, and the blue-haired menace clings tighter, coughing theatrics while Haruka nearly suffocates. In the aftershock of chaos, Haruka gets cornered by rumor and flattery, while the town below keeps breathing like his impossible promotion is ordinary. Gossip spreads fast, and everyone starts side-eyeing that sudden D-rank miracle, because even his old trash reputation can't survive this level of public humiliation. Then the magazine reveal slaps Haruka's face onto history itself, as living proof, and Yukimura practically vibrates with curiosity over the legendary name attached. Chasing the rumor of the rumored boyfriend, he leans in for a closer look, only to catch Aoi calmly denying the whole thing, deadpan and unimpressed, while a private room shower sequence turns the mood embarrassingly intimate and awkward, leaving Haruka drenched, cornered, and suffering through everyone's nosy nonsense. The mirror catches Aoi's stunned face, and the whole room goes awkwardly still, while Haruka's silence hangs there, already louder than everyone's gossip. Outside, the monster swarm keeps crashing in, because subtlety clearly died first, and Haruka answers with that terrifying pressure, turning the field radioactive, until Aoi spots Himari among the chaos and nearly loses her mind, because somehow this disaster still has time for personal reunions and panic. Then Haruka shrugs off the damage like it's barely worth mentioning, which only makes the town's suspicion toward those monsters look even dumber, as one ugly beast hits the ground, and Aoi realizes this fight is real, leaving Haruka pinned in the rain, while everyone else finally starts believing. In the rain, Haruka snaps free and screams for Himari, while blood and steel clash. Then the swarm lunges, the caster panics, and Haruka drops with absurd purple pressure. The battlefield answers with a crimson splash, because subtlety clearly never survived here. Haruka's desperate call reaches Himari, and the whole scene suddenly turns personal. Her face fills the frame, quietly shaken, as the reunion nonsense finally hits. Haruka swears hell, get stronger, and wow, that's almost heroic if you ignore the tears. Himari softens, confirming the impossible change, and the tension finally starts cracking. Haruka admits she was right, then turns as another familiar face enters the chaos. The rain settles into stillness, like even the storm got tired of their drama. Above the town, daylight returns, because this nightmare just got officially promoted. Inside the fitting room, everyone freezes while awkward tension starts dressing itself. Then the atmosphere slices sideways, because somebody just vanished from where they stood. The blue-haired menace steps out grinning, acting like this whole ambush is entertainment. She toys with Haruka, asking if the ridiculous disguise actually suits him. Haruka stammers like a caught rookie, and wow, confidence really did trip and fall. Aoi approves the look, then smugly praises the setup while the room watches. The demon girl narrows in on the tale secret, clearly not buying the act. Haruka admits Kyogoku taught him, yet she instantly clocks the obvious bluff. She calls the hideout useless, while the trio stands there getting verbally outplayed. Then she cheerfully claims the next one, because humiliation apparently comes with a soundtrack. The smug blue-haired demon barges in, grinning like disaster's her favorite hobby, then grabs Haruka's sleeve and mocks the ridiculous disguise. Forcing panic, Aoi instantly piles on, calling out his awkward hiding act. And wow, the demon catches the tale secret too. Because subtlety never stood a chance, Haruka admits Kyogoku's help, but she just laughs at that flimsy cover, and when he offers payment, Aoi swoops in with emotional blackmail. Then the name Himari lands, flipping his bravado into pure panic. Because Aoi's kindness hits harder than any monster swipe could, the demon declares the wound needs treatment, casually turning teasing into thanks, and suddenly Haruka's the good human, which is honestly devastating. Aoi hits him with that Himari name drop, and the panic starts, while Haruka caves in, admitting she backed his awkward little disguise. Then the whole cafe freezes under sunlight, like destiny just arrived, because Himari and gratitude land together, turning teasing into a reunion, and Haruka, sweating through the embarrassment, starts sounding almost human when the blue-haired caster cries about losing again, like that's surprising. So the horned demon woman smugly prods Haruka for homecoming details, and he finally agrees, already plotting revenge like a sore loser, but Aoi immediately calls out his post-date clinginess, which is brutal, and now she's suspicious these two might even live together. Haruka finally answers, and even that sounds like a surrender. Then Aoi weaponizes one rumor, making living together sound explosively scandalous. The whole table starts dissecting his finances, and he looks cornered. Meanwhile, the horned blue caster casually claims the master's side. Yikes. Aoi remembers his promise, then grills him for dodging the relationship explanation. Haruka stammers through the awkwardness, because apparently confidence died today. Aoi doubles down, mocking that he's making her use that title. The blue-haired girl finally blurts his name, ending her silence. Aoi grins like a menace and suggests cohabitation, just to twist the knife. Haruka panics at Himari's name, while Aoi demands he shut up. The demon woman smugly claims Haruka's master's side, and that's pure trouble, because the room instantly feels like a trap, with everyone staring at him, while Aoi cuts in, casually prodding his panic over the relationship mess, and Haruka's cool totally evaporates when his phone exposes the association's message, which basically screams goblins, a champion, and one ugly emergency on floor 3. Then the staff piles on, tossing out names and support orders like he's on trial, so they accept the request and charge straight into Section F without hesitation, only for the blue caster to needle Haruka's exhaustion with terrifying confidence, as the horned beauty doubles down, acting adorable while everyone's survival gets worse. By then, Haruka's red eyes say it all, because this disaster just got personal. There's another kilometer to go, and the demon's smugness stays unbearable. Then she questions the whole run, while Haruka's party keeps grinding forward. Her water domain traps the field, and suddenly mobility becomes her petty little joke. Haruka finally clocks the trick, because magic made her cheating look elegant. Except the tunnel has no water, so his confidence lands face first into reality. Aoi still pokes him about cars, and yes, this is the same disaster. Association rules get worse from there, because permission for vehicles is apparently sacred. Haruka gets handed the ugly truth, since regular missions never get approval anyway. Their Orochi operation barely earns support, thanks to non-stop emergencies. So the whole team scrambles for supplies, and the crisis keeps getting bigger. So now the Demon Queen's mocking him about more rules, like that ever helped, and then she smugly treats human bureaucracy as just another shopping headache, while Haruka finally notices her trick, because elegance can't hide cheating, and the dungeon pavement somehow feels smoother, which is just insulting, except the association is still hoarding supplies. So the questions get uglier, and Haruka's nerves crack under it, because the source of those resources hurts. Then Aoi catches his drift, teasing him before checking whether he's okay, and he insists he's fine, naturally, because pride is cheaper than healing, but she only smiles, deciding the situation is clear enough now, while above them, the demon disaster keeps moving, and the team charges in. Beneath the shattered chamber, Haruka stands with allies while disaster keeps breathing, then the bloodied scene hits him, and everyone else finally starts panicking too, because the floor isn't a floor, it's a corpse-strewn joke of a battlefield, and some smug investigator notices Haruka is not alone, which is adorable, as the blue-haired demon woman casually confirms the nightmare source behind Orochi, while that white-hatted fraud smirks like he discovered oxygen, not a massacre, but Haruka's stare says he's already done being impressed by anyone's mystery, so he calls out the obvious, because yes, there was another person all along, and the idiot in white finally admits it, dragging attention toward the real threat, where Haruka, the girl, and the demon woman square off for the next collapse. Haruka spots the impossible joke, because the missing girl never left. The calm caster confirms it, and the bluffing investigator instantly stalls. His appraiser brain short-circuits, realizing she was hidden there all along. Then the smug hat guy doubles down, casually explaining the obvious disaster. Aoi cuts in, teasing Haruka and calling the mystery girl insanely strong. That triggers the real answer, her instincts already screaming the truth. The reaction turns hilarious, as even Haruka looks briefly thrown, because apparently this child-sized menace is not some harmless bystander. So the blonde fighter draws steel, ready to start the next mistake, and the little powerhouse drops in, dragging a giant red weapon behind her. Haruka's blade tears through the swarm, and that pressure is downright obscene. Even the hat guy blurts out, "She's too fast," which is adorable. Then the green-haired nuisance casually needles Haruka, praising the dodge like a troll. Aoi jumps in, exposing the mystery girl as absurdly strong, and Haruka finally gets it. The blonde girl confirms Namiki Haruka is real strength, not town gossip. So the hooded kid commits to level 100, while the battlefield melts behind her. The Hat Man smugly frames Ichigo-chan as the skill test, because of course he does. Haruka immediately decides this kid is nuts, while the sword keeps carving sparks, but the tiny monster answers with a cold "not yet," and keeps advancing. From there, the red inferno just keeps rolling, because retreat was never her plan. Haruka's blade collides with the masked foe, and the whole air detonates blue. The pink-haired challenger practically declares herself the opponent, bold as ever. Then someone orders the fight taken over, while allies pile in behind her. Haruka gets told the blonde girl is strong, and yes, that's the problem. The explorer in glasses stares in disbelief, because this kid is absurdly powerful. Every appraisal screams skill and vibration, like the universe is mocking him. Aerial assaults keep crashing down, but the blue pressure keeps swallowing space. Haruka grits through the sparks, realizing the enemy is still not done yet. Her body starts vibrating wildly, and the next blow feels dangerously close, so she forces one last push, refusing to be underestimated by anyone. The battlefield is already a furnace, and Haruka stays planted in the blaze. While steel and brute force slam together like the world's ugliest duet, even her opponent starts sweating, because body enhancement just got insultingly obvious. That means the girl's strength is getting boosted, and suddenly everyone notices. The next exchange rattles Haruka hard enough to make the smugness vanish. For a second, she realizes this monster is still hiding another gear, but the blonde fighter only grins and keeps the pressure pouring in, as if watching Haruka struggle is somehow her favorite hobby, which is rude. Haruka fires back anyway, refusing to let that smug confidence write the ending, and the whole clash explodes again, because this mess is far from over. The clash opens on raw steel and panic, and Haruka's blade steals the spotlight. Then the battlefield drops into a ridiculous freefall of fire, force, and bad judgment. Even the smug observer freezes, because that level of pressure should not exist, and the duel line blurs fast, proving Haruka is still hiding another monster gear. The orange-haired fighter barrels in, all attitude and speed, like subtlety got fired, then immediately stares in disbelief, because Haruka just made her confidence look adorable. A veteran voice cuts through next, muttering caution while the blonde prodigy panics, and the teal-coated examiner coolly warns that trouble is nowhere near finished. That's when Aoi spots Haruka, and the reunion turns sharp, personal, and loud. Then the red-eyed warning lands, because 30 undead are coming, with one top-class terror fast. A single step lands, and the swarm learns fear the hard way, because that masked monster keeps grinning through blood, drool, and total nonsense. Then the battlefield erupts, with Haruka carving through fiends like their practice targets. Even the purple-haired prodigy freezes, realizing this power is absolutely unfair. Meanwhile, the orange-haired leader gets the obvious answer: yes, the enemy is coming here. One top-tier monster and 30 advanced ones, because subtlety clearly died today. The white-hatted analyst smugly confirms Haruka senses them better than anyone else, and casually drops the level 6000 bomb, making everyone else look decorative. Then Aoi recognizes him, while the mood turns from shock to awkward history, and the blonde girl's disgust says this grin is already everybody's problem. This is a serious situation, so naturally he opens with smug cooperation. The blue-haired caster senses the swarm first, and panic finally gets loud. Haruka's pressure cuts through undead ranks, while the prodigy watches. Miserable. God's test starts scanning the battlefield, because subtlety clearly died here. It even wonders if others' optimal actions can match Haruka's absurdity. Then the leader snaps for Himari to move up front with her. Haruka orders Hachi to back them up, and the beastly front answers. He demands evacuation for the explorers, then points straight at the big one. When the white-hatted man names the pair, Haruka finally meets the legend. He confirms his name as Haruka Namiki, and the room goes quiet. White-hatted support guy asks Haruka to back Himari and Ichigo, and he agrees, while everyone else realizes he mapped their fighting styles instantly, absurdly precise. Then one panicked report gets sent upward, because subtlety died with this battle, as the enemy finally arrives, forcing the orange-haired leader straight into carnage, and the clash explodes so hard even the frontliners start sounding winded. But the heroine keeps her blade steady, slicing through that ugly confidence. Because these monsters aren't normal, they coordinate like filthy little explorers, until the blue demon queen steps in behind her, making the whole room freeze. Then Haruka answers with fire, turning arrogance into barbecue, kill cross, and the fallen monster stays down, while she walks off like she owns the graveyard. Thanks to the blonde axe girl, the brunette spots something moving weird. The warning lands, and the shy reply proves the suspicion is real. Even Haruka notices it, while the tiny axe wielder calls out Mia. Then her weapon swells absurdly larger, because subtlety clearly quit today. Haruka stares down the glitching axe, and the whole mood hardens instantly. The skull-faced monster lunges next, only to meet Haruka's brutal counter, while the blonde girl watches in silence as power detonates everywhere. The beast gets shredded apart, its smugness reduced to red confetti, and the aftermath leaves one ugly message: Haruka owns this battlefield. Haruka's pressure crashes down, and even monsters flinch from that purple menace. Somewhere nearby, the purple-haired explorer finally realizes this isn't a joke. The summoned caster locks in, ready to back Haruka without hesitation. Even the red-eyed kid freezes, because that spell output is absurd. The aqua barrier holds, while Haruka's blade makes trouble look expensive. Then the beast charges in, and Haruka answers with raw destruction class force. Blue power surges overhead, turning the battlefield into one giant brag session. And the white-haired monster gets carved open, proving confidence can bleed too. By the end, Haruka stands over the wreckage like the whole map is his. God's test ends, target erased, and Haruka instantly cashes in the reward screen. The battlefield still smolders as his silhouette stands over the wreckage, unreal. Allies celebrate the clean win, while the blue caster looks ready to help. Even the onlookers freak out at the level-up chaos, because wow, subtlety died. Aoi cuts in with Haruka's name, pulling the reunion back into focus. The room goes quiet, and everyone notices the tension under her polite concern. Old memories surface, with the others admitting Haruka has changed since before. Haruka shrugs off the praise, refusing to get cocky, naturally unlike everybody else. Then he drops the real point. If he stands with her, they can push on. Right after the thanks, Haruka keeps the mood awkward, not heroic, then shrugs off the praise like winning battles is just housekeeping, while Aoi beams at him and calls him Haruka-kun. Naturally, but her stare sharpens next, because admiration and suspicion can coexist, and Haruka finally admits he died once, before everything changed, then credits both his power and his reliable friends. Wow, growth. Because even the system's God's test is sending his absurd video, and he stays humble, saying he still does not understand why. So the crew decides to head deeper into the mine. Report flashes up, and Haruka Namiki gets branded like a walking disaster. Born in Dungeon Town slums, with missing parents, because life loves irony. His file calls him caring and cautious, then praises sewing, of all things. Swordsmanship came early too, because apparently hobbies in this world can stab back. Raised in an orphanage, then dragged into a dojo run by his father. There he meets Himari Tachibana, whose fire makes the whole origin story crackle. After that, she studies under her father's slums dojo, and Haruka keeps pace. Himari Tachibana grows into an A-rank explorer, looking terrifyingly determined. She comes from Dungeon Town's Flow District, raised in a single-parent home. Her big sister manners hide a short temper, while tea and calligraphy calm the damage. Her mother dies early, and her father quietly turns into her whole world. So naturally, the girl gets raised in a dojo, where pain counts as homework. She masters sword, spear, and archery, because apparently one weapon is never enough. By high school, she's already making a debut that stops everyone cold. The media eats it up, turning her into a polished prodigy overnight, charming as ever. Then comes Haruka Namiki, and fate starts acting like a messy gossip column. 7 years back, he was 14 when a monster ruined dojo training. Himari fought back anyway, got stabbed for her trouble, and still refused to fold. Explorers and police arrived late as usual, while the creature slipped away. That incident lit the fuse, changing everything between Haruka and Himari, obviously. In the briefing room, the whole relationship topic lands like a nuclear embarrassment. Haruka just blinks, then starts acting like Miyahara is the real headline. Ayaka looks done already, because this was supposed to be combat intel. But now the chairman gets dragged into romance gossip, and nobody escapes that mess. Haruka even turns the whole detour into his official report, smooth as ever, while Ayaka checks him for it and politely begs for restraint. The chairman approves, because apparently chaos still counts as professionalism. Then the room shifts back to business. With Haruka's report finally continuing, he admits curiosity about her and praises that side of her, but carefully, because even he knows overdoing devotion is how legends get clowned. During the battle with Namiki, someone finally points out the weird part. His special skill is the real problem, not the monster pile. Even the appraisal is a joke, calling his data impossible to pin down, and the only certainty is his contract with disaster-class Orochi. Charming. Right. Then the reports escalate into legend mode. The level 100 mystery lived, leveled past 6,000, and basically started glitching reality like it owed him money. The chairman admits curiosity too, because apparently Haruka's precision impressed him, and that same room still remembers the other fight where divine prediction failed, while Haruka calmly says he was curious about that detail as well. Then, snaps the whole conversation back to the undead seeker battle afterward. Haruka barks the vanguard order, and the whole squad stiffens at once, because this genius picked up their abilities terrifyingly fast, which is obnoxious. Then the appraisal gets even sillier, claiming he sees hidden things, and might be some future disaster, because apparently being dangerous is a hobby. The chairman admits Haruka is fascinating, though not exactly in a comforting way, while the warning about Yukimura proves even divine prediction can get embarrassed. Still, the room agrees. Namika's personality makes corruption unlikely, but worth watching. So Ayaka keeps the investigation alive, politely dragging the meeting forward, and Haruka casually agrees, then tells her to report back whenever she has more. Meanwhile, the old man's stare is so intense, even the legend looks unsettled. Inside the association hall, Ayaka quietly opens the briefing, while the chairman watches. Below the balcony, scattered explorers linger like extras in a very expensive disaster. Outside, the town crowd keeps drifting through sunset, still processing Haruka's legend. Then the daring challenger leans in, fishing for chairman gossip like it matters. Haruka answers with maddening calm, brushing off the moment like routine paperwork. The blonde girl snaps back at that smug face, and the green-hatted man grins. Ayaka redirects everything, suggesting Haruka could team with that girl again. Haruka barely reacts, then checks his phone. Like this meeting is already boring. The message on screen ties into her request, and even he seems intrigued. Finally, the corridor empties into silence, with Ayaka left carrying the whole report. At 9:20, the armored girl checks the clock, already sensing disaster. Then Himari worries Haruka vanished, and instantly apologizes anyway. The black-clad pair finally arrive, and the whole meetup feels delayed on purpose. The blue-haired demon girl whines to Haruka, pretending exhaustion is tragic. Haruka snaps back that lateness is her fault, not his, obviously. She tries blaming the late-night raid, as if that excuse still works. But Haruka points out the morning mission, and the room gets awkward. In the end, the whole conversation dies when the schedule excuses collapse. Haruka reaches for Himari, pulling her back into the discussion. The demon girl freezes, mumbling apologies while Himari just stares. The demon girl's smug excuse lands badly, and Haruka just radiates tired contempt, while the orange-haired priestess keeps preaching moderation like that ever fixes chaos. Then Himari gets swarmed with praise, which only makes the mood even more ridiculous, as the demon brat starts calling her mature, and Haruka's glare says enough already. Himari freezes, caught off guard by the apology, looking far less annoyed for once. Then the white-hatted leader finally arrives, acting late like it's some charming ritual, with the blonde companion dragged along, both of them blaming sleep instead of accountability, and suddenly, the demon girl's nonsense about morning weakness gets dragged into the spotlight as the party heads deeper underground toward the fifth-floor boss and its minions. Behind them, Haruka quietly mutters Miyahara, because even warnings sound like judgments now. The white-hatted explorer blinks at Haruka, already fishing for drama, because the request never hit the bulletin board. And that only makes him nosier. Haruka dryly explains the reward was absurdly huge, so of course people pounced, while the horned girl instantly computes the split and starts acting offended. Then she shamelessly crowns Haruka the biggest winner, doubling the jackpot like greedy math royalty. The whole thing turns into a tantrum over shares, as if paperwork were sacred, and the white-hatted guy dodges details, hiding the client like a coward with style. When Haruka spits out Miyahara, the blonde brat calls him gross, because subtlety is dead. Still, the team's reunion feels weirdly warm, and she admits he looked happy. Haruka ruins the sentiment by denying it, naturally, because emotions are inconvenient. So yeah, one other person might be thinking that. And it's the blonde girl, while the green-hatted explorer catches the hint and starts connecting ugly dots, because Haruka's name lands there like a knife, and the smug grin turns sharper. Then he cools the drama, pretending this ridiculous request was only a stepping stone. Meanwhile, Haruka remembers the divine prediction nonsense, and the cheat system flexes, because it measures everything, spits out ridiculous experience, and begs greedy vultures to notice, which is exactly why he suspects this miracle only chose him for a reason, until the city finally pays attention, and Haruka gets hit with a nasty backlash. The pain feels familiar somehow, and he hates that realization with real enthusiasm, so when the armored girl rushes in, even he looks one heartbeat away from collapse. In the wreckage, Haruka insists he is fine, then almost remembers something deadly. The worried woman pushes for answers, and he admits even he barely gets it. She checks his condition while he leans on pure stubbornness and bad timing. Then that glowing divine prediction screen lands, because the universe loves theatrics. Haruka's red eyes harden as the system warns. Monsters are already closing in. The count gets uglier fast, while he keeps acting like this is manageable. Then the swarm arrives, and the system smugly declares disaster-class monsters everywhere. Claws and fangs flood the tunnel, because subtlety clearly died earlier. Haruka swings through the blue interface, demanding the so-called prophecy keep up. The whole squad advances together, and the monsters finally look appropriately doomed. In the tunnel gloom, Haruka stays rigid while the pressure keeps piling on. Then that smug divine screen appears, because fate loves a dramatic entrance. His red stare sharpens, as the system warns monsters are already closing in, and the count keeps climbing, while he still pretends this is workable. Meanwhile, the violet-eyed challenger studies him, realizing this mystery is far nastier. That suspicion lands hard, because Haruka's silence has started looking dangerous. So the blade comes out, and the blue-haired ally finally confirms the threat. Haruka orders the formation split, and she answers with icy confidence. From her read, about 20 enemies are coming, with goblin riders among them, which means this little tunnel party just got promoted to survival mode. The blue-haired commander drops the first order, sending Miyahara and Himari rightward. Aoi hesitates, blurting about Haruka and Ichigo while trying not to panic. Then the plan snaps into place, with Ichigo assigned to the left ambush route. Even Himari questions the logic, because yes, this setup looks ridiculous. The commander smirks, dodges the explanation, and hides some juicy reason for later. Himari reluctantly accepts, demanding a real explanation once the dust settles. The others agree, trusting her, and wish Haruka and the team good luck. Ahead, Haruka gets the signal, as the tunnel turns into a hunting ground. The monsters flood closer, all claws and bad intentions, while pressure spikes, and there it is, the swarm charging in like bravery ever paid rent. The ambush route opens in a cavern, and Miyahara stands waiting there. Green-hatted smugness fills the tunnel, while Haruka quietly judges the nonsense. She asks Tachibana what the matter is, already sensing trouble. He suggests close-quarters combat, and she admits the basics only, so she assigns the goblin riders, taking vanguard and rearguard like a pro. That serious vibe comment lands, and Haruka nearly has to laugh. Then the comparison to Hachi sparks confusion, because his point is wildly off. The dating question detonates the mood, and Miyahara panics instantly. Haruka leans in with that smug little smile, pushing the joke harder. She finally snaps, calling the timing inappropriate, while he calls it ice-breaking. Even in a death zone, That smug hat boy spots flirting first, not danger, and the armored girl freezes up, proving his timing is basically criminal, because the swarm finally shows itself, crashing in with hideous confidence, and her panic buys the monsters a half-second of terrifying momentum. Then the white hat menace treats battle like a date invitation, unbelievably, making her question him while the whole tunnel becomes one bad joke, but Haruka's stare snaps back to the fight, cutting through the nonsense. As he launches straight into the enemy line, reckless and absurdly lethal, where a dark, snarling beast suddenly bars the path with cursed pressure, and the girl finally realizes this is no ordinary monster, just dark breath. Vision blocked and pressure rising. Haruka gets boxed in by purple lightning. That calm breaks fast, because even her eyes catch the swarm's ugly confidence. Then the monsters crash through, turning the tunnel into a lunatic meat grinder. Haruka orders the sword answer, and the battlefield instantly gets very personal. One careless opening is all it takes, and the cunning goblins cash in. Haruka gets clipped, then snarls that this cheap ambush is absolutely ridiculous. Even with a skull-faced beast charging, she keeps the blade line from folding. The follow-up strike sends her twisting through the air, still refusing to panic. She lands hard, staring back like she already hates their faces, and the swarm learns too late that her irritation is still lethal. The tunnel turns into a nightmare, and Haruka gets buried under monsters. One goblin leans in far too smugly, ruining her breathing room instantly. Then a skull-faced freak joins the pileup, because subtlety died earlier. The swarm keeps pressing, while her blade line refuses to collapse. Haruka's face says enough. This ambush is beyond obnoxious. Even with monsters on top, her glare stays stupidly defiant. Another beast sneers over her, tasting victory a little too early. But the pressure from below stays dangerous, and the whole pile wavers. Haruka gets pinned and clipped, yet still looks ready to bite back. So the swarm celebrates early, which is always the universe's favorite joke. The pileup turns brutal fast, and someone screams for mercy. The blue-haired caster is already failing, pinned by ugly pressure. Haruka keeps cursing through the chaos, refusing to fold. Then a beast crashes in, making the whole mess even nastier. Its claws rip through the defense, and confidence gets shredded. Blood and panic fly everywhere, while the monster keeps laughing. Haruka realizes the swamp of bodies is crushing his strength. Worse, the dark mist is draining him. So yeah, fantastic timing. Even shaken, he forces out a plan, hunting for one opening. Because dying here is rude, and he is not done yet. Beneath the monster pileup, Haruka's hand drags over blood-stained ground, cursing his own softness. Then the blue-haired caster gets mauled too, and the battlefield smugly says worse. The armored girl, bleeding and shaking, still keeps Haruka's name in her throat. Meanwhile, that beast's sloppy appraisal gets laughed off by a blade and brute pressure. One glance from her eye says the crisis just got personal and messy. The monster's grin dies fast, because even it senses something ugly coming, so she snaps the opening wide, betting everything on that tiny, desperate chance. And the beast finally realizes this isn't prey. It's a counterattack. Haruka's strike cuts through the chaos, turning confidence into red spray. The scream lands late, because by then the monster is already finished. Haruka is still pinned in the mud, and this fight is brutally unfair. She knows stopping now means getting buried alive by the swarm. One monster lunges in, smug as hell, and gets answered instantly. Her blade bites back, turning its confidence into ugly, embarrassing blood. The pressure spikes, and the monsters finally stop acting so brave. She forces space with a vicious counter, refusing to die here. Even wounded, her stare says the next mistake belongs to them. The swarm charges again, but her timing stays disgustingly sharp. Another strike lands, and the beasts start panicking like amateurs. By the end, their roar collapses into Haruka's last relentless finish. The pink-haired swordswoman tears into the swarm, and the monsters regret it instantly. Because her shoulder is wrecked, the mist is worse, and attrition is looming, yet she keeps pressing forward, muttering that her sword still matters here. While one beast tries its luck and gets answered with nasty precision, the result is pure humiliation. As her guard snaps open the path ahead, another attacker dives in, and she pivots like pain is just background noise. Then comes the heavy hit, dropping her with a brutal, ugly impact. But even on the ground, she refuses to give the swarm the satisfaction, so the monsters hesitate, staring at her like they finally found a problem, and that tiny opening is enough for her to clear the mist. The swarm barrels in, but her blade is already writing their obituary. Steel meets steel, and the first arrogant beast gets checked instantly. Then her eyes narrow, blood on her cheek. While the threat wavers, she ignites into a blazing demon slash. Because subtlety died here, One monster lurches close, only to get skewered and publicly embarrassed. Another follows, and her momentum turns the whole battlefield into kindling. The blast rolls on, shredding rock and swagger in one sweep. Monsters freeze, staring at her like they just misjudged everything. The air turns feral blue, and even their fangs feel small, because her path stays open, and the swarm is the one failing. A tidal burst of blue power detonates across the battlefield, and the swarm reels. One beast's face gets buried in the blast, looking pathetic as hell. Haruka stands at the center, bloodied but still radiating that nightmare pressure, while the blue-haired caster backs her up, tiny against the cavern's impossible glare, and the pink-haired swordswoman, somehow still standing, glares through the pain like royalty. The monster pack panics, their vicious confidence collapsing into ugly, clumsy desperation, because every lunge meets steel, flame, and enough force to embarrass predators. One beast's smug face finally cracks when Haruka keeps advancing, unfazed and lethal. Another recoils at the sight of that impossible stare, realizing too late, the path stays open, and the monsters are the ones getting erased. The monster gets grabbed mid-rush, and that smug momentum dies instantly as Haruka's hand snaps in close, making brute force look embarrassingly ordinary. Then the white-suited observer watches the whole thing, smiling like this is entertainment, while the swarm gets carved apart behind that calm, infuriatingly stylish posture. Now the battlefield opens wider, with Haruka walking through wreckage like its own owner, and the observer casually praises the spectacle, because apparently carnage is his hobby. Aoi catches the real danger in that grin, realizing this man reads people brutally, so he drags out her hidden pride and baggage, and she freezes, because he nails the ugly truth, jealousy, shame, and that Haruka fixation. Then he admits she's still different from his beloved Ichigo, which is somehow worse. A sharp newcomer corners Aoi, and she demands his real agenda. He smirks, promising answers later while loudly backing Haruka anyway. Ai snaps back, offended by the smug mystery, and shuts him down. Then his praise lands harder, hinting she has finally relaxed around Tachibana. He suddenly remembers her battlefield blunder, roasting her for losing rear support. He excuses the chaos as help, then blames Dark Wolfen pressure for the mess. Aoi explodes, calling him a liar and dragging up his own impossible swordwork. He only grins, pointing out she protected him once when goblins boxed them in. The monster notices the same opening, and warns him not to act clueless. Aoi still refuses trust, vowing to shield Haruka if this clown turns traitor. Don't get heated, they're already sprinting to Haruka, cocky as ever, and the reunion trail opens behind the orange-haired leader and his escort. Even the smug talk gets clipped short, because Aoi is furious. The narration cuts to the aftermath, where the cleaned-up squad rushes onward, while the blue-haired healer steadies the wounded and keeps disaster off her shoulder. Then the pink-haired swordswoman roars through the swarm, carving a path, and Haruka calls for Himari, proving the battlefield still remembers names. She checks his condition, stunned by his pain, while he brushes it off, insisting the wound's fine, though the black-haired boy warns movement could reopen it. So she shields him anyway, and the tough act collapses into concern. Himari snaps back from the brink, insisting she's fine, but the attitude is doing all the crying. Haruka's voice lands next, because of course he still worries about her first. Then she notices his condition, and instantly suspects the man is hiding something ugly. The blonde onlooker, however, stays frozen, reading the room like a doom forecast. Her suspicion sharpens into certainty, and suddenly everyone smells a conspiracy. Haruka brushes off concern, while the black-haired ally quietly warns about the real threat behind them. Then the system screams emergency, and the battlefield gets a ridiculous blue-tech panic button. Haruka lunges into danger anyway, shouting for Himari to watch herself. Classic hero nonsense. She finally whirls around, shocked, because the purple curse is already wrapping her up. And right there, the monster swarm gets interrupted by pure, ugly, glorious catastrophe. In the ruined arena, Haruka gets tangled up in something purple and grotesque. Himari recoils as the cursed mass keeps climbing her body, mocking her confidence. Haruka's warning for Himari lands late, because the danger is already laughing at them. The black-haired ally dives in with a barrier, trying to cut through the tentacle mess. Even then, the blue-tech panic turns ugly. As regeneration gets exposed, Haruka hauls Himari close, refusing to let the disaster swallow her whole. The black-haired explorer checks her panic, while she stares at him, shaken and speechless. Relief barely starts, and Himari mutters thanks, like she hates needing it. Then the beast keeps knitting itself back together, because of course it does. So the pair stand frozen beneath the monster queen, facing self-regenerating nightmare fuel. That single crimson eye says the queen is awake, and already annoyed. The swarm surges below her, acting tough, while she casually puppeteers disaster. Even the snarling beast front gets tangled, because regeneration is her favorite joke. Haruka keeps Himari covered, grimly realizing this nightmare just refuses to die. The black-haired ally checks her panic, and suddenly everyone remembers breathing again. Himari barely manages gratitude, sounding offended that survival needed saving. Then the monster knits itself back together, because apparently humiliation is optional. So Haruka and the others freeze beneath the queen, stuck in pure disbelief. The beasts keep lunging anyway, while her red eyes burn straight through them. And the battlefield realizes this isn't a fight, it's a bad nightmare. Haruka faces that writhing disaster and wonders what kind of nightmare this is. The blue-haired demon smugly explains cannibalism, as if that's normal etiquette. Haruka catches the meaning fast, horrified that it devours its own allies. Even the monster queen calls the habit twisted, and somehow she is not wrong. The demon only shrugs, treating the whole disgusting gimmick like a minor inconvenience. Haruka and the others are left staring, because that logic is beyond stupid. Then the battlefield erupts again, with swarm, queen, and allies all colliding. The onlookers fall silent, because the whole mess is getting uglier by the second. Teal-hatted arrogance tries to reason it out, while the absurdity keeps growing. Even his composure cracks as the red cravat hand tightens, and the dread closes in. So that's Miyahara, and even the veterans are staring, half stunned, because that grotesque thing keeps swelling, chewing through allies like it's normal. The warning lands hard, and nobody's laughing when the doom meter spikes. Then the queen's domain tears loose, turning the battlefield into a panic parade. Skill after skill collides, while the pink-haired brute proves she means business. Even Meteor Slam gets swallowed by that nightmare, which is embarrassingly rude. The airborne charge keeps coming, and the monster's face finally starts cracking. Haruka answers with a savage drop, making the whole room feel the hit. Blood and pressure explode everywhere, and the beast finally understands the assignment. After all that nonsense, the blonde survivor is still glaring over the wreckage. The demon's mental pollution lands, yet the monster just stares back, unbothered. So the smug caster's big brain trick? Apparently, absolute garbage against this thing. Then that rainbow-eyed nightmare mode kicks in, and the whole beast goes feral. The white-hatted explorer nearly loses his mind, because Ichigo just means trouble, while the red blade keeps carving through the chaos like arrogance deserves. That brutal strike still doesn't finish the job, so the pink-armored fighter stays alive, as the monster gets dragged and pinned in a purple mess of cursed pressure. Her face says it all, pure, icy confidence, while the beast utterly panics. The teal-haired narrator calls it mental pollution, and the hooded rookie freaks out, because it's just mind-hacking nonsense for weak monsters and weaker humans. Even for Ichigo, the teal-hatted veteran expects resistance here, and the blue-haired demon just plants a hand, smirking through the pressure, while the black-haired rookie and Aiwi panic over Hachi's name, and the monster queen casually admits she only felt a little dizzy. Then, Haruka and Aoi brace inside that cursed pit, her hand on him, as he blurts his worry, and she insists Hachi is still fine. But the queen's grin only sharpens, because that's apparently the bad news. She already knew the fog was weak, and now she's basically bored. Haruka cuts in anyway, agreeing she's right, yet pointing at the real threat, because the battle isn't over until that purple nightmare gets stopped. The demon queen fills the frame, grinning like disaster is her favorite hobby, while the green-haired explorer gets flattened beneath that purple, mind-bending pressure, and the swarm keeps surging. But Haruka answers with brutal, impossible force, because even this smug nightmare still looks bored when the battlefield starts screaming. Then the green-haired caster locks in, eyes hardening beneath that messy fringe, and fires skill misdirection, turning the enemy's own power into a glowing trap, so the monster's eyes explode into panic as the illusion eats its confidence, while Yukimura hears the call and realizes Haruka is still standing there, yet the blue-green barrier keeps surging, daring the queen to break through it, and the pink-haired swordswoman finally notices the chaos, shouting at the absurd sight. Haruka stands before the giant beast, pressure boiling as allies brace nearby. The teal-haired observer gapes, admitting this absurdity feels almost familiar, because getting lumped with monsters is not exactly a compliment. Yet the pink-haired swordswoman keeps the offensive alive while eyes scramble, and the blue-haired caster's barrier surges as Haruka promises to reclaim her. Then the teal-haired explorer shrieks at the impossible similarity, losing all swagger, while the demon woman's eye fills the world, mocking everyone with confidence. As the spellstorm detonates, her body gets shredded under relentless pressure, leaving only twitching monster eyes and scattered silence behind the collapse, and the green-haired fighter still reaches out, because surrender is optional. Under that violet storm, the horned caster shields Haruka, and the demon's pressure coils tighter, while the pale blonde girl studies his face, catching that absurdly familiar morning greeting. Then the battlefield yanks hard as one explorer warns too late, sword already slipping, because the monster's eye flashes like a carnival of bad decisions and panic, and Haruka dives through the wreckage, shouting divinity while refusing to die on cue, as the enemy's rainbow pupil locks up, getting bullied by raw pressure for once. Then the beast finally detonates under the assault, leaving only a furious maw, while the appraiser gets hit with a divine measurement and instantly loses his swagger, and AY freezes on Haruka's name, because apparently Resurrection loves dramatic timing, while the blue-haired pair stare in shock, proving the nightmare is still real. Divine measurement starts up, and Haruka's face says, "Oh great, this is bad." Hachi calls out to Haruka, panic flashing because the activation just died. Divine contamination lingers, quietly blocking the system like a smug little cheat code. Hachi's spell gets interrupted, and the apology lands harder than any sword swing. Haruka drops straight into the rescue, while Hachi begs forgiveness and gets shut down. The blue-haired observer hesitates, then recognizes Haruka with stunned reverence. He isn't worthless at all, just the teammate everyone badly underestimated. This time, the dark-haired challenger locks in, ready to handle everything himself. The blue-haired woman just smiles like this whole crisis is entertaining. Haruka brushes it off, still calm, and asks what is wrong. The smug divine contamination still jams everything, while Haruka keeps the banter icy. Even then, he shuts down the panic and yanks the team into survival mode. Quick! The green-haired ally asks for help, and Haruka answers with terrifying confidence. That same cocky observer admits he underestimated him, because, shocker, he was wrong. Haruka then calls for Ichigo, and the blonde fighter finally accepts the role, so the squad launches into the swarm, and the monsters immediately regret showing up. One grotesque beast gets its face rearranged, because subtlety clearly died here. Green lightning and pink power surge together, turning the battlefield into a blender. Haruka keeps climbing through the pressure, dragging the whole nightmare toward the core. Then the system screams divine measurement, and everyone realizes this trap got personal. Green backlash screams misdirection, and the kid's aura gets hilariously misread. Then resonance snaps in, because subtlety died somewhere off-screen, so the green supporter begs for backup, while Haruka turns that into fuel, and the swarm gets flattened, as if showing up was the mistake. One beast gets its whole face rearranged. Nice job, tough guy. Then green lightning and pink power merge, turning panic into a blender, while the system flashes divine measurement, naming the trio like a verdict, and the readout starts correcting itself. Because interference keeps wrecking the numbers, Haruka rockets through the pressure, dragging the fight straight at the core, leaving the whole trap shaking, as if destiny just got body slammed. Green pressure erupts around Haruka, and the battlefield starts trembling, while the pink-haired swordswoman keeps slicing through disaster like it owes her rent. Then the green-haired fighter locks in resonance, turning panic into raw momentum, and the blonde explorer stares on as the system judges this madness, because the monster's face gets wrecked, proving swagger is not armor, while purple lightning tears through its eye, exposing something far uglier beneath. The swarm keeps screaming under the pressure, getting folded into purple ruin, and the observer practically admits that skill gap with a stunned rant, as the green-haired striker answers with resonance, stacking power on impact. Then the blue-haired caster explains the layered trick, and reality gets embarrassed. That vibration attack hits harder than bragging rights ever could, and the nasty part is it slips through indirect contact too, because resonance lets the damage travel through whatever it touches. Weak enemies get erased from the inside, which is frankly rude. While the system checks synchronization and the beast starts panicking, then the roar boost kicks in, turning that pink chaos into punishment, as the field control readout stabilizes and a certain red-eyed genius recalculates, with divine measurement back online. The battle suddenly remembers who's carrying it, so he orders the misdirection up, and Haruka answers with ruthless precision, already noticing he was never going all out, the madman. So he really cracked that trick through pure skill, and the room panics because coordination between Haruka, Namiki, and Ichigo gets absurdly boosted. What a joke. Then the weapon axe resonance lands, and Ichigo drags the battle forward, while Haruka smirks like this catastrophe was always part of his plan, and the enemy finally gets told to hit it with the axe. Naturally, so her pink aura detonates on contact, triggering a brutal resonance chain, as the system brands the skill rough, meaning her timing was still sloppy, yet the combined strike erases the field, and Haruka keeps the pressure insane, while divine measurement fully returns, predicting his optimal move at last, and then Dual Edge activates, because apparently one overpowered mode was just warming up. The resonance snaps into place, and Dual Edge wakes up with nasty intent. Ichigo and Haruka explode forward, their auras colliding above the carnage. The field shatters as monsters get reduced to expensive-looking mulch. Even the grotesque core twists under pressure, still pretending it has pride. Then the exact same aura closes in on the beast's cursed eye. The bystanders freeze, because this is clearly beyond normal explorer nonsense. One sharp-looking man starts re-evaluating his entire worldview in silence. The blue-haired horned woman watches, smug as ever, while survival looks optional. Haruka's follow-up lands clean, and the swarm starts regretting existence immediately. By the end, the battlefield is just ringing echoes and broken confidence. Haruka's grin says the massacre worked, and the system finally agrees. The horned blue beauty and her partner start doubting their odds, embarrassingly. The teal-haired veteran exhales, while the blonde one still hopes. Haruka's smug glance says victory, because surprise, Hez still standing. Then he yells for Hachi and Miss Himari, dragging everyone forward. The blue-haired beast woman and Himari pose like disaster's hottest duo. Warning panels scream biological response, and Haruka instantly realizes trouble. Yet he steadies himself, blade ready, because panic would be adorable. The cursed beast lunges with violent madness, forcing the whole field back. Haruka still refuses to fold, leaving everyone else screaming no way. The blonde girl freezes, while the teal-haired veteran already senses disaster. Haruka's smug calm flips everyone out, because surprise, he still stands. Then the system's cruel measurement starts whispering that defeat should have happened. The blue-haired caster and beastly pressure prove that explanation horribly correct. The monster isn't just strong. It's grotesquely unpredictable and tainted. Haruka still gets clipped, and even his eye says this sucks. But the battlefield keeps warping as his resonance tears through the dark. The brown-haired girl and dark-clad kid panic, calling for Haruka desperately. The blue-haired demon woman laughs it off, until memory starts leaking. Then Haruka lands back in frame, and everybody asks if he's okay. Inside the cursed cavern, Haruka cuts in first, forcing priorities. Then the grotesque swarm answers, and that confidence starts dying fast. The blonde explorer spots the axe behind it, finally catching up. Yet the monster keeps grinning, vomiting poison like a cheap flex. Haruka still drives forward, and the beast gets dragged by pressure. Even its toxins turn useless, because humans were never meant for this. The blue caster throws up whirl barrier, barely holding the madness. Aoi screams for Mr. Miyahira, while Haruka keeps pushing the blast. The teal-haired ally admits he is running out of energy, and asks. Haruka hears the panic, then realizes the measurement has been rigged. Haruka stares into the mess, wondering what move could save this, because hiding his real skill was already hanging by a thread now, and the second he touches that sword, the whole secret gets louder, while the blonde girl finally spots the real threat behind the monster, namely Ichigo's axe. Just sitting there like the universe's punchline, then the weapon lands cleanly, and suddenly the missing piece is found, so her confidence snaps back, because apparently Ichigo still gets results. As the blade and monster tangle in a purple storm of bad decisions, with Ichigo twisting through the vortex like chaos finally picked a side, and Haruka plus the green-haired ally shout for her, right on cue. Ichigo's speed snaps the whole battlefield awake, and Haruka reacts instantly, because that monster is exactly what everyone feared. And how cute, they notice late. The blonde bystander eats the shock first, while the swarm keeps grinding forward. Haruka gets called out through the chaos, and he answers with brutal resolve. Then he decides saving everybody is the only option left, naturally, while the black-haired observer pushes analysis over panic. Like that helps now. Ichigo keeps slicing through the purple madness, grinning like disaster is his hobby, and the system screams a divine measure, warning as tension spikes. But the red alert only proves one thing. A far worse threat is waking, because a disaster-level monster's heat signature is now roaring in higher dimensional space. Haruka stares down the impossible subspace, and even he sounds rattled. The monster core looms ahead, smugly radiating disaster like it owns reality. Its warped body twists the air, turning the whole space into a pressure trap. The demon woman's presence swells behind it, proving the nightmare has a face. Her grin says this entire mess is entertainment, which is honestly pathetic. Then the claws surge forward, crushing the battlefield under vicious purple force. Haruka's aura spikes as the strain hits harder than his pride can laugh off. Ichigo is dragged into the blast radius, still swinging like he refuses logic. The red rings slam down on everyone, and pain answers with a roar. Even the fiery redhead breaks, because this subspace is eating heroes alive. That demon woman finally flinches, sensing Haruka's wavelength through the chaos. Meanwhile, the swarm gets shredded, and its red body just detonates back. Haruka's eye catches the mismatch, because that monster isn't acting normal. The battlefield folds under vicious force, yet the pressure keeps multiplying, absurdly. Then the beast panics, staring into disaster, while smugness evaporates instantly. Below all that ruin, the ground cracks open and survivors freeze hard. Even the black-hooded observer blurts disbelief. As the system screams disaster level, outside, the apartment tower stays quiet, pretending none of this happened. Then the scene flips to recovery, with Aoi beside a sleeping blue-haired girl, and the horned girl breathes peacefully, like Apocalypse was just a nap. Aoi catches Haruka off guard, smiling like this mess is somehow normal. The black-hooded guy checks on Miss Himari, acting way too calm. He asks about Hachi, and the room starts feeling suspiciously quiet. The answer comes back soft, claiming she's calmed down a lot. Haruka finally exhales, relieved she didn't collapse after all, thankfully. But 5 hours earlier, the battlefield was pure, screaming chaos anyway. A monster swarm pressed hard, until Haruka and allies carved space. Then the beast lost its smug face, realizing the pressure was fatal. Haruka stares in shock at this nonsense, muttering that reality broke. And when someone cries out for Miss Hachi, the reunion snaps open. Haruka freezes at Hachi's name, staring like the universe just glitched, while the blue-haired caster leans in, realizing this mess has history, and even the ominous system starts hinting Haruka's identity goes deeper, until everyone piles into the room, where the creator sounds absurdly dramatic. Then Hachi finally arrives, glowing like a dramatic finale nobody earned, and her reappearance rattles Haruka so hard the whole room snaps awake. The shock melts into recognition, because Hachi is alive and standing. Then the tension collapses into shimmering silence, all that monster drama sidelined. Aoi calls Haruka by name again, cutting through the awkward aftermath, and immediately tries to save everyone's nerves with tea and a break. Lavender tea pours like luxury, turning the room absurdly gentle, and the first cup lands as Haruka finally gets served. Aoi leans in, teasing him with sugar like old habits, but he refuses the extra sweetness, acting tough for once, then thanks her for the tea, finally dropping the battlefield face. The sip hits, and even Haruka admits it tastes delicious. Aoi beams at that praise, thrilled her tea actually worked. While he notices the scent, calm enough to name lavender, she laughs about that obsession, saying he loved this tea before high school. And just like that, the whole reunion stops pretending it's chaos. At the tea table, Haruka freezes mid-sip, while Aoi hovers over him, smugly, maternal, the room still stained by chaos. As his old battlefield mask starts cracking apart, then he finally admits Himara's shoulder is fine, and the tension gets ridiculous, because a monster's head is still getting skewered behind them, spilling red like theater, while the battered heroine laughs through it all. Proof this reunion runs on insanity. And Aoi beams when he praises the tea, thrilled her little rescue mission worked. Then he catches the lavender scent and gets weirdly nostalgic, turning the joke into memory. She teases him for loving it since before high school, like his whole personality was archived. So the table settles into an awkward, peaceful silence, with everyone pretending that's normal. And somehow this is the happiest part of surviving a catastrophe. Haruka freezes mid-tea, then realizes the message finally arrived. Awa's praise follows, with reports headed straight to Ayaka later. Then the reward money gets delayed too, because bureaucracy loves dramatic timing, and Aoi starts fretting over Miss Tachibana, while Haruka stays strangely calm. Before that calm cracks into relief, as he recognizes her again, the tea room turns quiet and awkward, with everyone pretending this is normal, until Aoi checks who's there, and Haruka's distracted. Silence deepens, because it's from Mr. Miyahira again, and that name hits like nostalgia. Then Haruka remembers Ichigo vanished, and starts scanning the room like a lost idiot. Aoi catches his stare, covers her mouth, and the whole reunion turns adorable. The intercom buzzes overhead, and the room already feels awkward, like drama on schedule, because the blonde girl finally moves in with that smug, bossy urgency, while the little support squad trails behind, ready to back her up, and Aoi checks Haruka's condition, acting concerned, while lightly roasting his timing. Then the hooded caster casually reminds him of Master Haruka, and his nerves melt, because she starts praising his softened attitude like she owns his entire mood, while he, ever dramatic, insists he is still the same, just slightly less miserable. Then the blonde girl arrives dead center, and the whole courtyard shuts up, with the orange-haired leader, the hooded support, and the black-clad guy all staring, as everyone realizes this reunion is less a reunion, more a delayed emotional ambush. Haruka stares into the facility, already sensing something shady inside. The briefing gets darker fast, because this place is packed with bad seekers. Even Haruka's red-eyed glare tightens, while the whole explanation gets uglier. Ayaka coolly admits A-rank newbies still miss how detention works, naturally. Then she drops the real rulebook, where criminal seekers get routed by request. Haruka takes that in, because he has already been here taking gigs. So his question shifts to what kind of idiots actually got locked up. Ayaka answers with the worst flex imaginable. Ordinary residents lack skill abilities, which is exactly why wielders are barred from abusing them on non-combatants. And that leaves the purple-backed detainees looking like the real problem. Haruka keeps staring down the talk about abilities, because mystery is apparently cheaper than answers. Ai jumps in to clarify things, making the rules sound less dumb than they are. The association's dungeon laws spill out, and Haruka finally hears the detention logic. Criminal seekers, of course, get stuffed into this facility when they keep misbehaving. Abusers of city skills are the real trash, targeting civilians like it's a hobby. Haruka's silence says enough, because that list sounds uglier than expected. Then his follow-up lands, and the whole system suddenly feels a lot less neat. Ioi confirms Himara's involvement, calmly dropping another name into the mess. Yukimura Shinji gets dragged into the same problem, looking painful and pathetic. Haruka turns toward Himari, and the awkward reunion finally starts biting. The mysterious blue-haired woman appears to announce their arrival, all calm menace, while Haruka gets dragged into a talk about last night's reckless mess. Then the pale blonde girl demands a private room, like that's subtle. And that's where Maloran finally gets named, because suspense loves paperwork. Melorin's disappearance after the Mother Wolf battle suddenly makes everything uglier, since she only wanted help searching, not some dramatic missing person tragedy, and now the scent trail theory lands, turning the whole thing into a hunt, because Maloran is here, and she realizes she has to move fast. Aoi cuts in to stop Ichigo from derailing the conversation, naturally, while the hooded blue-haired figure quietly needles Haruka about what's wrong. The mysterious hooded girl finally spots Haruka, and instantly drops the master title, while Haruka, still bloodied and unfazed, checks whether she's fine after everything. She brushes it off. But that silence reeks of something bigger, because three nasty presences are ahead, and one feels weirdly nostalgic. Haruka pretends not to care, then asks what that even means. Classic. And she casually insists the priority is moving out, not unpacking trauma, but the gate clerk starts the bureaucratic nonsense, claiming seekers still need approval, until Maloran's name lands, and the whole room snaps into search mode. Ichigo gets worn down from the edge, while Haruka blocks the panic with a sharp glare, and the reunion ends with everyone scrambling, because subtlety died here. Haruka stares down the call, calm as trouble starts knocking, then checks the message. Because apparently drama now texts first, and Aoi cuts in, asking what disaster is this time. Haruka, while teasing that Ichigo's probably dragging him around, plus Nishiki's at the facility. Then the green-haired hat guy flashes approval, basically saying good luck, rookie, and the room goes dead quiet, because even legends need a babysitter sometimes. That's when the blonde girl slams in, telling everyone to stop being mean, and Ichigo gets spotted, sparking the whole room into instant panic. Haruka finally snaps, asking what all this racket is supposed to be. And just like that, the calm dies again, because subtlety never survived here. Yukimura Shinji's smug little aura meets Haruka's terrifying pressure. Then the association office opens up, revealing a whole awkward welcome committee. Akihito coolly complains about the chaos, because of course Haruka brought it. Haruka snaps back at the racket, and the room instantly loses its confidence. A staffer rushes in with the emergency update, claiming Maloran is missing. The blonde searcher admits he tracked her scent straight into the facility. Her face finally lands the story, and now everyone is staring at the same mystery. Haruka recognizes the familiar look, while the blonde explorer starts connecting dots. Then Ichigo gets mentioned, and even Haruka pauses at the coincidence. Suddenly, the room realizes this isn't random. It's a family-sized disaster. The room opens with Nishiki eyeing Haruka like a legend, and that's already embarrassing, because the genius A-rank seeker title lands harder than the man's patience. And Hachi just, yep, that's Haruka Namiki, the same bloodied menace everyone keeps underestimating, while Nishiki keeps poking the bear, trying to sound smooth, as if he isn't shaking. Then Hachi finally names herself, cool as ice, and casually asks who the hell he is. So Nishiki straightens up and drops the official title bomb, director of this correctional facility, which instantly makes Haruka's situation feel less like a meeting and more like a trap. And Nishiki, now fully enjoying himself, starts connecting the dots to Koshiro's stunt, while Haruka finally catches the ugly pattern. because this whole mess has been arranged, and yes, the fast one was just someone else playing games with everyone. The blonde explorer casually pries into Miyahira, and nobody buys that smooth act, because he and her were rookie partners before their ranks split them apart. Then he shrugs off the breakup, bragging a replacement showed up later anyway, and yep, that replacement was Ichigo, which lands like a petty little ambush, while the room freezes on the girl, the kind of stare that screams trouble, since she's clearly the one being analyzed, outfit, origin, and all, like paperwork. Then she drops the bombshell that she's half ogre, half human, and everyone blinks, because apparently her childhood was dungeon-adjacent misery, with her human father gone, and her mother disappearing for food, which is somehow the saddest garbage excuse, until she finally admits hunger dragged her into the dungeon, where she met Mia. She casually admits a snack trail dragged her along, and somehow that was enough to end up here, where the room instantly suspects kidnapping, because yes, obviously, the story gets rerouted to the real problem, and the blue-uniformed handler smugly drops Mellorin's name as the target, then orders Haruka to find her, like this. Whole mess was paperwork with extra trauma, and the blonde explorer grins at the nickname, while the others nitpick her features, starting with those huge eyes and that ridiculous tongue, then even her height, because apparently everyone became experts in evaluating tiny girls, until one by one they label her timid, shy around strangers, and, weirdly the opposite of Ichigo, plus hilariously happy, with spinning eyes and insect cravings, proving this mysterious missing girl is cute, strange, and absolutely not simple. Mellorin's ugly little talent makes even fire look petty and annoyingly dependable, so the blonde officer pauses, sensing the room's mood shift into suspicion. Then Hachi points at Mellorin's monster connection, and everyone perks up. Haruka casually calls her his pet and friend, shocking the whole hallway. That nickname detonates the next question, because monster friends sound scandalous. Mellorin answers like it's nothing, saying friendship came before any contract. Ichigo backs it up, explaining some seekers can partner monsters, apparently. Haruka shrugs off the theory, saying Mellorin just talks to monsters. So the crew pivots to the facility, and he tracks her scent. The answer leads straight underground, where criminal seekers are locked away. A rat's silhouette haunts this underground corridor, and the whole place feels cursed. Then Hachi catches the scent first, acting smugly like this mystery was obvious. Haruka's reply is pure chaos, treating Mellorin like a pet and a friend, which sends everyone spinning, until her casual monster link sounds scandalously ordinary. Mellorin only shrugs it off, insisting friendship came before any contract nonsense. And Ichigo backs that up, because apparently seeker-monster partnerships are real, so Haruka dismisses the drama and follows the scent trail downward, where the black-hooded crew realizes they're standing in a much older wing, with the blonde leader admitting this place runs deep under the facility, and Nishiki seals it, revealing the underground wing existed before the correctional complex. Nishiki drops the ugly truth. This place was remodeled to trap criminals. Haruka, naturally, treats the whole system like a suspicious little toy. Then he notices doors appearing where none existed, because of course, and the paths keep shifting too, like the wing enjoys sabotage. The blonde guide confirms this dungeon-like maze is real, not drama. Hachi, dead serious, says the floor itself mutates and reroutes people. Ioi hates the implications, because lost criminals means nobody finds anyone. Haruka still just follows the scent, unfazed by the facility's tricks. The others admit the underground wing is a bad place for surprises. Nishiki ends it coldly, only the prisoner area stays untouched. The convenient dungeon talk lands hard, and Haruka instantly doubts the setup. Then the wing's maze logic kicks in, with routes shifting like a smug trap. The blonde explorer admits this mess is real. While Haruka catches Mellorin's scent, danger escalates fast. So the others panic and beg everyone to follow her, but the hooded blue-haired girl appears anyway, cool as ever, and steals the room. Her glitchy arrival rattles Haruka, because apparently nostalgia can hit like a hammer. Then the same voice keeps echoing, and she realizes somebody just warped in. Haruka freezes on the memory. While the eerie presence feels painfully familiar, he finally spots Mellorin, calls out to Ichigo, and the reunion turns electric. Then the others collapse into breathless confusion as the chase explodes forward. Nishiki smugly calls the trap real, and the door theory starts collapsing. The whole wall answers back, because hidden mechanisms love drama. Aoi stares at the giant entrance, while Nishiki pretends ignorance. Naturally, even he senses something off, and that's never a good sign here. Haruka feels the wrongness too, as old memories claw upward. Nishiki suddenly caves under the pressure, and Aoi rushes in, worried. Haruka insists he is fine. Then that lightning in his head hits harder. The black-haired guy catches the same chill. Because this presence is familiar, Hachi confirms it feels like Haruka's last disaster, and everyone freezes. Then the hooded blue-haired girl stands there, the missing presence finally undeniable. That tiny hand motion sparks trouble, and the whole room leans in. Hachi's power erupts into a blue flood, sealing the corridor clean. Meanwhile, the blue-haired presence becomes a problem, and everyone starts staring. Haruka recognizes the familiar wrongness, while the others just freeze there. Nishiki, king of smug explanations, finally looks cornered by reality. Haruka's glare hits harder, and even the black-haired observer feels it. Hachi confirms this reeks of the old disaster, so now nobody jokes. At the giant doorway, Nishiki asks if Hachi knows the place. Then he asks about the lock, and she admits she only guessed. Cute, right? The so-called guide is improvising inside a nightmare. Hachi cracks the seal open, and the whole corridor inhales danger. That lingering smell of Maloran crawls deeper inside, which is never a good omen. Everyone keeps moving, because hesitation in this place would be comedy for the dead. The squad bunches together beneath the doorway, already feeling the trap closing in. Then the chamber swallows them in a towering grid, all cold and cage-like. The black-haired explorer and armored woman admit the room feels deeply wrong. Haruka already knew it. Even the air itself acts offended, as if the dungeon hates their attendance. A hostile figure stretches across the cross-shaped glow, smugly treating trespass like entertainment. The others freeze while that purple-wreathed menace calls them fools, because of course she does. Then the warp flares, and the intruder realizes someone somehow entered anyway. Hachi freezes at the seal, because that pressure feels disgustingly wrong. Then the cross-shaped chamber finally opens, trapping everyone in its cold glare, while Yukimura smugly flexes, and promptly gets humbled by Haruka's presence. The whole squad fans out below, awkwardly pretending this nightmare needs support. As Haruka's stare sharpens, the black-haired explorer starts looking suddenly nervous, and the cloaked blue-haired girl backs the team, with everyone else bracing, before Hachi hears the man's threat and asks if he knows him, only to admit she doesn't, which is embarrassingly unhelpful. Honestly, because Haruka then senses something familiar, crawling up from deep inside, and that awful feeling keeps overflowing, dragging the whole room with it. Hachi calls Haruka out, and the room instantly turns serious. She explains that one man sealed his memories by force. Worse, he buried the hatred, fear, and old admiration too. Hachi snaps, clearly not understanding who he means at all. Haruka checks on her, while the armored woman sides with him. Then the black-haired guy smugly mocks the whole hopeless mess. But Hachi remembers his face, and that old despair hits hard. She blurts out the ridiculous apology, and everyone else stares. Haruka finally cuts in, telling her to calm down already. Even he admits this version of Hachi feels dangerously off. Haruka cuts through the awkward silence, treating the whole monologue like background noise. Then he corners the smug stranger, demanding answers about that absurd nailed-up body. Hachi tries to guard the moment, insisting this stays private and off-limits, but the horned woman snaps back with full aristocrat disgust, as if humans smell bad. Haruka senses Hachi's wavelength inside her, and that is where the panic starts, because the same proud face suddenly realizes impossible things are happening right in front of him. The blue-haired woman loses her cool completely when Haruka exposes the human contract, and the hooded observer nearby quietly takes the shock like this is already overdue. Then Haruka cranks the pressure so hard the arrogant beast starts spiraling, while everyone else stares at the insane energy, wondering what monster he just woke. Hachi's warning barely holds, then Haruka's blood-red pressure crushes the room. The corridor warps under it, and even the facility looks like it's surrendering. Behind those bars, the black-clad watcher realizes this isn't normal anymore. Yukimura's smug little appraisal dies instantly, as Haruka's aura hijacks his confidence. The sealed chamber answers back, and Haruka starts sensing something rotten inside. That shadowy observer still won't blink, because apparently terror is his whole brand. Then the demonic creator snaps, denying Haruka's claim like that changes reality. Hachi folds under the strain, shocked Haruka was never meant to stay asleep. The blue-haired beast spirals harder, screaming that Hachi belongs to no one. Even then, Haruka keeps pushing, and the whole nightmare begs him to stop. The chamber erupts in panic, and even the smug appraiser starts trembling, while Haruka's pressure turns the whole room into a humiliating wake-up call. Hachi finally rushes in, only to find the damage already spiraling, and now she's checking Haruka like he wasn't just rewritten by chaos. The blue-uniformed director arrives beside a collapsed girl, acting way too calm, then admits this disaster wasn't some normal prisoner, because shockingly, he's not human. That revelation jolts everyone, especially the blonde explorer, who suddenly notices the ears, and the director doubles down, explaining there's definitely something stranger behind him. Hachi demands answers, because that hidden presence feels way too familiar, and Haruka can only groan, as the crowd finally realizes the nightmare has company. Haruka's dry greeting lands first, because even wrecked heroes still tease. Hachi freezes in place, realizing the floor has already lost this fight. The battered explorer begs her to hurry, while his pride leaks out. Her panic spikes when she recognizes the creator, and that is awkward. The demon keeps talking like a smug disaster, warning of a counterpart. Haruka gets blasted by raw chaos, screaming her title back in horror. That hidden gate sits there like a joke, sealing in another nightmare. The lock pulses, as if the whole facility is about to confess. Then that twisted hand flexes, proving the monster still has options. The orange-coated explorer glances over, sensing this mess just escalated. So this is the glorious mess, and Hachi's already panicking, while Haruka just stares like pain is a minor inconvenience, because Yukimura's smug little appraisal circus turns into an ugly disaster, and the prisoners start moving. Under that cursed orange corridor, every inmate's confusion keeps snowballing. As the missing exit rumor spreads, and one grinning bastard enjoys the chaos, then Haruka corners him with that dead-eyed pressure, making his confidence evaporate, because the former A-rank seeker title lands like a public execution, and Yukimura's laughter collapses the second he hears who he's facing, while the real joke arrives when he notices nothing's being listened to, and suddenly the handcuffs and cell keys unlock themselves, which is just fantastic. Inside the underground wing, fresh paths open, because this maze loves humiliation. The inmates keep spiraling, while escape tricks supposedly wreck every plan. Then Haruka steps in, and suddenly the smug guide looks ridiculous. Hachi calls out Shinji, forcing the whole charade into the light. Haruka presses the questions, and the helpful guide starts sweating. Hachi hesitates, sensing the trap, while Haruka's patience runs out. The old trash seeker jab lands, and the room's arrogance gets exposed. Haruka notices that cursed arm, and the confidence starts rotting. Yukimura recoils in disbelief, because the insult finally found its target. Then Haruka dares him to repeat it, and the joke dies. Kukuku, the corridor reeks of smug confidence, until Haruka's grin cuts through it. Then the purple-haired idiot keeps laughing, roasting Haruka's reputation, and sounding dumber. Haruka answers with one brutal strike, instantly shredding that arrogance into confetti. The wounded explorer just stares him down, because mockery works better than mercy here, and Haruka casually tells him to stop joking, like the punchline already died. Hachi finally points out the real path, making the guide look painfully fake. The long-haired escort tries to sell obedience, but the whole lie is already cracking, while the others hesitate, sensing the trap and that delicious dungeon-style nonsense. Then the team spills onward through the hall, dragging the embarrassment behind them. Somewhere ahead, the green-haired seeker memory lingers, proving this mess began long ago. Inside the blue-hooded demon's chamber, the smug explanations start sounding very expensive. Hachi calmly reassures Haruka, insisting the exhausted freak still isn't dying. Haruka answers with gratitude instead of panic, which is almost suspiciously normal. Then the question turns to the creator, and the black-hooded guy hesitates. Hachi drops the bomb. This isn't a parent. It's the being who made her. The blonde, uniformed explorer freezes while the whole room realizes reality just got weird. Hachi clarifies she meant her literal father, and everyone gets the point now. She was not born normally, but manifested as the creator's own image. No childhood, no memories, just a body that woke up already in this form. And yes, that means Orochi lore is involved, because this dungeon loves chaos. And so the creator's image of Orochi finally stops pretending, and the room freezes, because being molded after a mythical monster apparently comes with absolute zero humility, while the hooded woman smugly explains her drinking habits came from that origin, and everyone else just sits there, listening like they've been shoved into a bad legend. Then the blonde officer gets hit with the, "I know this sounds insane" routine, and it does, since she admits she used to drink with that person, meaning the mystery gets even uglier, before the real bomb drops. As she casually points out, she was born from the creator's image, and when the blonde explorer asks if she means Orochi, she basically says, not quite yet, because she's about to clarify the literal father angle, with the smugness of a disaster report, and the missing girl question lingers, leaving Ichigo and Mellorin hanging in the chaos. The blonde officer stares at Haruka's disappearance, while the girl beside him stays frozen. Then the horned woman and black-clad observer hear the long-eared mystery get uglier. He decides they're neither human nor monster, maybe from some fantasy world, honestly. Aoi turns back to Haruka, and he just answers with tired silence. So the black-haired guy starts acting philosophical, tossing out game master nonsense. The horned woman snaps that he is leaping way too far, and he apologizes. Then she admits her memory is hazy. But the old companion felt homesick. That leads straight into the creator's memory seal. And the room leans in. Because apparently the creator was betrayed by humans, then learned to hate them. And now everyone wonders if that disaster is tied to the guy from earlier. A red warning storm engulfs the room, and Haruka's pressure turns the air vicious, while the others panic over the alarm, then spot Hachi recognizing it instantly because that seal apparently points to a person, and the wicked ones around them, and the so-called creator bursts in like a drama king, basking in the chaos, only to reveal himself as Shinji, which absolutely nobody greets with enthusiasm, as the whole room lines up behind him, looking less shocked than deeply annoyed. Then Haruka's deadpan silence fuels the confusion, and Aoi practically begs for answers, while Shinji smirks about old reunions, acting like this mess is adorable somehow, until the horned woman confirms the creator's betrayal, the memory seal, and human hatred. So yeah, the fantasy origin story lands hard, and Haruka might be the disaster's link. Seriously, this drama king barges in, seething that everything went sideways. Then the Seekers clock his outfit, instantly branding him a criminal outsider. That suspicion sticks harder when he somehow bypasses sealed restraints and cells. Even the panel guy admits only elite Seekers could pull that stunt. The underground dungeon should have tightened things, yet the locks still failed. So the blame lands squarely on him, because of course it would. He claims his power overflowed, and the dungeon controls just collapsed. Then he points at the true mastermind, that smug creator bastard. Everyone recoils at the name, suddenly realizing what kind of monster he is. And before anyone can breathe, he casually calls Haruka and Himari over. Haruka stands trapped inside that sealed nightmare, and the pressure is insulting. The long-haired explorer finally corners him, acting friendly, which is adorable. Then the bastard reveals Haruka broke the dungeon's restraints, because subtlety died here. Haruka instantly shuts that smugness down, forcing the conversation back to damage control. His sheer presence rattles everyone, while the room's tension keeps getting worse. Ichigo and Himari hesitate, waiting for Haruka to decide their next disaster. Haruka shrugs off the panic, and casually orders them to move with him. The wild grin says everything. He's clearly planning to ride this chaos. Yukimura gets caught in the blast zone, looking less confident by the second. And the dungeon's rules? Completely irrelevant, because Haruka is breaking them again. Yukimura keeps cackling, promising Haruka a bloody lesson, until Hachi cuts in, shouting for Himari, and dragging back up into the mess. That snaps Aoi into attention, because nobody enjoys watching a disaster grow legs. Ichigo dives in too, ready to help, like hesitation ever paid the bills. Then Haruka roars at Shinji, making his smugness look embarrassingly fragile. The clash detonates instantly, and the room turns into pure weaponized panic. Haruka still stands there like a monster, pressure and flame blazing through the chaos. Hachi and Ichigo rush beside him, because apparently survival now needs teamwork. Even so, Haruka dismisses the dungeon's rules, as if they were a joke, and Himari freezes, realizing this lunatic just made the impossible look normal. Steel flashes meet first, and the armored girl barely survives the opening cut. Then that tiny challenger keeps giggling, because manners clearly died here already. Haruka praises her reflexes with brutal sarcasm, then instantly crushes her pride. The room recoils at the word kid, as if reality finally slapped them. Below, the swarm tightens around Haruka, Ichigo, and Hachi, hunting bad timing. Ichigo gets ordered to split up, and he agrees like hesitation pays rent. Haruka surges through the monsters, making one arrogant push look laughably small. Then the girl is launched clear, while the others scramble under pressure. Even the system's purple void starts asking her age, which is hilarious, and the blue-haired menace appears, ready to play Big Brother games. Haruka needles the smug bastard, then drowns his pride in purple pressure. He doubles down, promising painful discipline with that same ridiculous grin. The blade work turns savage, and the blonde girl gets caught in the crossfire. He taunts her nimbleness, calling her little missy like humiliation is a hobby. Then he admits prison rusted him, maybe because his prey is adorable. Or maybe he just enjoys bullying a kid, which is honestly on brand. That silent blonde stares him down, while his creepy laughter only gets uglier. Even her eye says it all. His laugh is disgusting, no arguments. But he's not done, because he's about to show another move, and this skill is the kind nobody escapes once it snaps shut. Haruka stands bathed in violet pressure, already wearing that smug disaster grin, and the first move lands as his unique shadow bind starts sealing everything. Then he drags the blade through the chaos, reading the blonde girl's opening, with a nasty little laugh. He calls her cute, and starts mocking her, before shadow capture snaps in, because apparently humiliation is his favorite hobby, and her foot gets caught clean, like gravity itself picked his side. As he swings the follow-up, the blonde finally gets launched off balance, leaving her wide-eyed while his attack keeps slicing straight through her guard. The girl's stare stays cold, but the field has already turned against her, and even that tiny silence says it all. She's trapped now. Something feels off already, and the blonde girl finally notices it. Haruka's pace has dulled her confidence, yet his swings stay relentless. Then he grins, mocking her tiny opening like a bad joke. Shadow capture bites down, snagging her foot, because humiliation was the plan. She gets launched off balance, and his blade keeps carving through defenses. Even her cold stare cracks, while Haruka calls the shadow lively. But she still isn't escaping, no matter how smug he looks. The trap snaps her movement clean, and the field keeps laughing. He vanishes from sight, leaving only panic and a red blade. By the end, she's staring at nothing, because Hes already gone. Hes right there, and the shadow answer lands like a quiet threat, which almost makes the blonde prodigy flinch, because surprise apparently ruins her whole brand. Then she recovers with that smug little jab, acting offended by his existence. But the trap already bites her ankle, and his blade keeps humiliating her footing. Even her icy composure cracks, while he laughs off her shadow tricks as basic, and then he calls the whole setup his playground. Because arrogance clearly came to die here, she tries to bolt, only for him to cut across the path again. Then he cackles about playing longer, because subtlety is for people losing. His strike bursts through her guard, sending blood and panic flying everywhere, and by the end, she's left staring at him, completely outclassed. Haruka's laughter ricochets through the dark, while the girl's first guard collapses, because even animal instincts can't outrun that absurd axe pressure, obviously. Then the shadow swallows her escape route, and she vanishes into it, only for Haruka to keep stalking her, smugly claiming shadows mean nothing, and the blonde finally notices something rotten, which is adorable a second too late, as Haruka carves through her defense and demands tears, screams, anything, but he only gets a cocky grin, because Big Brother's loving this. Then his blade snaps in from nowhere, and her shadow tricks get mocked. The impact wrecks her composure, leaving her snarling in pure panic, because Haruka still keeps pace, and that's humiliating her most of all. The blonde's strange scent tips Haruka off, so fists replace the axe. Her smug confidence shrivels fast, because this brat feels unnervingly wrong. He savors the possibility of hearing her panic, then carving deeper. She freezes at his casual nickname, finally realizing he's not joking. Ichigo catches the odor too, and instantly flags the girl's sensitivity. The girl snaps back, furious he noticed, while fear leaks everywhere. Haruka slides in and grins, treating her shadow tricks like trash. She answers by drawing a trump card, all swagger and zero dignity. Then her slash finally lands, and Haruka's bloodiest laugh appears. But the counterattack backfires, because shadow cutting only makes him meaner. He plans a shadow stab, savoring her panic before the real carving begins, but the orange-suited menace slips in close, making that smug timing look stupid, and the battlefield freezes when the ambush gets spotted this fast. Because the first slash lands clean, yet Haruka's grin only turns nastier, while the cornered fighter instantly realizes the target escaped her little trap. Then Mellorin's name detonates the silence, sending everyone hunting for her, with worried hands and slick spells moving through the tense air, until the blonde girl finally stands exposed, face blank but power blazing, and the monster below gets treated like practice, not salvation. The smug little chameleon finally gets pinned in the arena, and that grin looks expensive now, because Mellorin's name cuts through the panic, dragging the whole room into a search, while the blonde girl and the orange-suited creep square off, pretending this is still his game. Then the shadow wielder loses her cool, screaming nonsense, as the monster label collapses, and the blonde fighter answers with that flat, devastating yes, which is somehow worse, as Ichigo keeps dissecting the enemy's timing, reminding everyone the old wound still matters, while Haruka's pressure keeps surging, red-eyed and nasty, like Mercy got evicted, and even the purple-haired challenger starts sweating. Because talking big is easy until reality talks back, so the creature's little ambush gets erased, and the fight belongs to Haruka now. The chameleon's smug taunt backfires, because the girl already tracked its scent, and the orange-clad creep starts whining as the pressure keeps boxing him in. Then Mellorin's name hits the room, and even the loser realizes this got personal. He panics harder, demanding attention like volume alone could save his pride, but the blonde fighter coolly answers that monster nonsense means nothing against friendship, and that flat little correction about Ichigo lands harder than any blade, while the whole situation keeps exposing his embarrassing ignorance, one shaky excuse at a time. Even the so-called tough guy starts sweating, because grown-up bravado is collapsing fast, and the final verdict is simple. Maloran matters, so the fight stops being his game. The smug lizard gets flustered fast, and Meloran's glare makes it worse. Then the name drop lands, Uncle. And suddenly this mess feels personal. Even hiding in shadows fails, because her taunt keeps leaking straight through. The orange-clad creep explodes, whining that lizards and kids are humiliating him. Ichigo answers by flooring the brat's confidence, then his foot too, literally. So the shadow trap snaps shut, and the chameleon finally stops feeling clever. That's when he admits he slipped once, which is villain code for disaster. Meloran keeps the shadow pinned, grinning like she already saw this ending. And the loser's next brilliant plan is killing the weak one first. Deep in the kill zone, Haruka stays absurdly calm, blade humming with purple menace, while the chameleon brags about elegant slaughter, then instantly regrets saying it near him. One icy eye catches the opening, and the monster's swagger turns to panic, because Ichigo crashes through its confidence, shattering the cocky lizard's little ambush fantasy. Then Maloran cuts in, red axe ready, making that confused, look expensive, and the orange-clad idiot gets launched so hard he forgets gravity exists. As he screams about the kid showing up here, like that excuses anything, but Maloran already has the monster pinned, forcing it to choose survival over pride, and its genius final move is the classic coward plan. Ignore her, chase the weaker target. Haruka is wrecked in the rubble, and the chameleon's smugness already looks stupid, as the whole battlefield stares at the mess, demanding an explanation for this disaster. Then Meloran steps in, the so-called invisible girl, and casually owns the room, because her disappearing trick also lets her swap positions with whatever she touches, and the monster starts bragging about testing skills, which is adorable in hindsight, until Ichigo reads the opening and slams straight through its confidence, while Meloran pins the coward in place, making his panic a public performance. So his brilliant plan becomes fleeing toward the weaker target, which is pathetic, but the next scream says that dodge just got him absolutely shredded. Haruka's victory leaves the room stunned, with Ichigo's handiwork sealing the joke. The chameleon monster sulks under Meloran's stare. Suddenly less brave, Haruka still calls the fight finished, like this was barely warm-up. Then Meloran corners the issue, wondering why Uncle survived at all. She coolly reminds everyone that humans can't be killed so casually. Ichigo answers by carving through the monster's guard and its dignity. The enemy panics, whining about Haruka's strength and that childish face. Haruka only smirks, while someone realizes he feels ridiculously familiar. Aoi finally locks on, and that last little greeting changes everything. Inside the pressure dome, Haruka mocks the monster for never landing a hit, then smugly flexes that he's a crime investigator, not easy prey for kids. A beat later, he notices the old nickname hanging in the air, and grins. The girl wonders if his human disguise is the only reason she hesitates, while Hachi stares, realizing this monster somehow recognizes Himari too, and admits she doesn't know him, only that his presence feels rotten. Then Haruka's flames and blade carve straight through the enemy's composure, leaving the blonde girl wide-eyed as Hachi screams that he's dangerous. Haruka seals the humiliation by warning the forgetful to stay quiet about Orochi.